we'll let everyone in.
Excuse me.
Not in that.
And let's see. Okie doke. Is everyone in, Lori?
Yes.
Okie doke. Welcome everyone to the exciting Dover Conservation Commission hearing of May 22nd, 2024. If Lori, could you read our permission to handle this over Zoom, please?
Sure. Following guidance issued by the governor regarding the open meeting law, this public meeting will be held remotely. Individuals wishing to participate may do so using Zoom video conferencing technology. To join the meeting using a computer or tablet, you can use the link listed on the agenda, which is posted on the website, or to access by phone, call the number and enter the ID and passcode, and the meeting is being recorded.
Okay, great. Thank you. So first up on this evening's agenda is 12 and 14 Miller Hill Road. And let's see, we got some numerous pages of additional information from our last meeting. Paul, I believe we left can you encapsulate where we stand? I think our last meeting we were looking for invasives management and a few other things, in terms of wrapping up this stage of things.
Yeah, we were close, and one of the issues trying to work through, which we did work through last time, was the ability for the folks on the ground to use herbicides, as needed to manage the invasives. As a result of that, Steve, I think, felt confident enough to increase the success standard for invasives management. That was a big issue because obviously the commission, has a pretty strict prohibition regarding that. So that was something that the folks on the proposing side really wanted to make sure they had that clear authorization. That has subsequently been worked in. I know they've been working out final contracting issues with Crawford, we weren't very far away last time, but that was really the primary issue to get resolved.
Okay, and I think one of the things that was asked last time was to have we been sent a copy of the Crawford contract?
I believe so. There was Peter Brooks circulated a redacted version of the contract.
And what were the redactions for?
I think it was just the money side.
Mm-hmm. And is there a particular reason for us to not see what that is?
I'll leave that to Mr. Brooks.
I'll ask Mr. Brooks.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't think that the cost of the different stages was relevant to anything and should be part of the public record. So that's why.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The contract does set out all of the different work that's going to be done with specifications.
I looked up the Zoom.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. And Paul, did you get a non-redacted copy for your own review?
No.
Or no? And do you feel that with those redactions, you can still review that and make a, as to its proposed efficacy?
Yeah, I mean, I think, frankly, I think Steve Roberti's, success standards are really where the rubber hits the road.
Mhm, mhm.
And Crawford has to make it happen, but Roberti has to certify that it did happen.
And what would the change in those success standards? What are we looking at now?
Steve, you want to take that? I saw you click off. Thanks.
Yeah. So the original success standards for the invasive species, I think we had it set at 85%. And in the last round, the go back and forth I had between Paul and Chris, we wanted to get that to a higher number, which is why we kind of were leaning more heavily on the herbicide use in year one to kind of be able to ensure that we can achieve a higher, 95%, knockback of the invasives after 5 years before we kind of let nature essentially take over on the site, to give the site the best chance it has that, success on its own, once, human influence is kind of left.
And Paul, that's a very high threshold for success rate. Do you feel that the introduction of the irrigation and things of that nature help add to that likelihood? Is it, there are things here that are a little bit different than a homeowner's likelihood of success?
I think so. There's a couple things, the irrigation and the kind of the long-term monitoring, putting in substantial plants, all of those things will help the restoration, the native plant restoration to take off and do well, and hopefully, with the active management and over 5 years. And that, kind of special treatment of everything that's being planted. If the natives are, solidly in place, then that itself really helps to keep the invasives down. So that's really the hope, is that, at the 5-year point, when, as Steve said, we hope to let Mother Nature take over. At that point, hopefully there's not going to be a lot of opportunity for the invasives to really do well. I just remind everybody, it's not 100%, and I don't think anybody involved, on the proponent side would ever want to be held to that standard, and I wouldn't propose holding them to it.
No, I think typically we don't hold people to 95% either, but
Right.
that's but that seems to be the goal, and that's very much appreciated. Janet, do you have your hand up?
Yes, so I just wanted to clarify that the commission has not formally voted to authorize the use of herbicides. So that was something we were going to take up tonight. So I'm not sure if I understood Paul correctly. So the peer reviewer and the consultants may have discussed that, but the formal herbicide waiver request we have reviewed or voted on, and the same with the invasive species management plan, which is also recently revised. So it's my understanding that tonight the commission was going to have a more formal discussion on those 2 items and then vote on those, and then that does close the loop.
Okay, so I kind of thought that's what we were doing at this point, in terms of as we're moving towards those, touching base on those there. Goddard Associates sent a clarification or relative to their why they're requesting the use of herbicides. I don't know if people had a chance to review that. It's in essence saying that it's a way for them to ensure, especially for a large project, that they can, especially in the first year, get a handle on invasives. Also, that some of them are large and woody at this point, and they find that can be difficult to remove. They've outlined guidelines where the first thing they would do is approach things manually, and then work their way in terms of on an as necessary basis to cutting and daubing, systemic injection, and then if necessary, depending on the time of year, hitting foliage there. Paul, that seemed to be well thought out and real world based. What's your sense on that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Steve and Chris and I had talked this through offline, over a couple of Zoom discussions, and that is in fact a consensus.
Mm-hmm. And Janet, you're concerned about invasive management. This is part and parcel of this. And is it the herbicide waiver is specifically because they're looking to manage the invasives there. Is that correct?
Oh, I'm sorry, John, could you repeat that?
So their invasives management plan incorporates herbicides, and and hence the waiver request for herbicides. So they seem to the two things that you mentioned that needed to be addressed were the invasive management and the herbicides, and they seem to be in tandem in my eyes. Do you agree as well?
Well, yes. So in order to approve their invasives plan, which includes herbicides, we do need to approve the herbicide waiver.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I do have two particular questions.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask those now?
Go ahead.
The first is in the herbicide waiver request. There's a reference that that herbicides will be used, a licensed applicator, and at doses selected through coordination with the Dover Concom prior to any treatment. And I'm wondering, I did not see any dosage. I saw the two types of herbicides proposed, but I'm not sure. I'd rather see the proposed doses in the invasive management plan rather than having them come back on a regular basis to ask for our approval. So I'm not sure.
I didn't read it that way. I read it asking for our approval once they get started and any ongoing management. But let me, Nick, I saw your hand, but let me, Chris had his up first. Let me, go ahead, Chris. Politan.
Thanks, everybody. Maybe I should have lowered my hand, excuse me, but it was just over the matter of not giving up complete control for from the Conservation Commission's perspective, but having it be based on Steve's management recommendations and then coming to the commission so that you would still have a say over the herbicide use and subsequent treatment. So so let me stop my comment there and let it. Thank you.
And Paul McManus, my reading of their submission relative to herbicide use and invasive management was that's exactly what they proposed. That the commission would be involved both at the start and ongoing for review. Is that your take on that?
Yeah, and the primary thing that we wanted to give the commission comfort on is to not leave any fear that that they're going to come up with some exotic new thing, untested thing, and put it out there. So I mean it's just kind of an extra measure that's being put out. Call it self-control. Self-limitation is probably a better word. To give the commission some comfort that that's there.
Okay. And Nick, you had a response?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't figure out. For some reason, I don't have the option to raise my hand, but I just wanted to say that everyone is a licensed herbicide applicator that will be working on the project. In addition to the two herbicides that were selected are unrestricted, meaning that they're the same active ingredient that in general terms, like any homeowner can buy. We buy them at different concentrations and different amounts than a homeowner can buy them, but all applications would be made according to the label and the labeled rates. All of our herbicide applications don't go off label. So, you know, and those are regulated by the EPA.
And is that referenced do you know, in the waiver request and invasive management report we got from early May?
I didn't specifically put that in there, but I didn't want to specify. I'm not an herbicide licensed
Yeah.
applicator, so I didn't want to specify actual rates or anything in my waiver request. But that's not specifically in there. If we know what those are going to be, we can amend it and add it in easily enough. Or we can keep it as, you know, used as, you know, specified on manufacturer's label or something to that effect.
And that's what I think would be a regular clarification there. And then if things were more tenacious than expected and you need to change something like that, then we'd want communication and have you come back.
No, certainly. And part of my whole plan on this is, you know, like years 2 and 3, those are all TBDs. We're not going to know what the management potential is in year 2 until we assess it after year 1 and make some recommendations. And maybe in year 2, we don't need herbicides at all. Maybe it's just some minor hand pulling, you know, that's kind of the hope and the goal. And if we can manage it with manual methods later on, and that's just as effective, that's what we'll choose.
So the site at this point has been open for, you know, well over a year, gone through a number of seasons. What's the state of invasives at this point? You know, do we have any things that have thrived and have become much denser woody? You know,
yeah, I mean, I would say overall, and I haven't seen it yet this season. Maybe the last time I saw it was last fall. You know, if you look at the wooded areas, like the native area, the baseline invasive species out there is probably around 10% cover, you know, on average. You know, within the site, it's probably on average around 20%, but it's patchy. There's dense patches, areas that are at none. You know, it's only going to expand until we do something about it. Obviously, that's why I wanted to kind of kick it in the butt early. And then, you know, kind of have like a blank slate to start the restoration process off with.
And is there a mechanism for removing things, you know, uprooting if necessary? I saw that in the report you were looking to minimize that, but it seems sometimes that can be very effective.
Yeah, no, I think if there's area, I mean, obviously the big things you can't pull out, you know, a 3-inch DBH black locust, right? You need the excavator to get that out. But you know, some of the small stuff, if it can be weed wrenched out, you know, I think in the follow-up years, if there's small areas, I think, you know, the preference is going to be if it's something can be manually removed, we'll manually remove it. If it lends itself more to a foliar application that's targeted just to that area, because once we put the plants in, we don't want to miss anything and like start hitting native vegetation with any herbicides. So I think as the site naturally develops with natives, it's going to lend itself more to manual removals as opposed to year 1 where, you know, there's really nothing native in there now, or there is, but it's not, you know, we haven't planted anything yet, so we don't have to worry about, you know, missing and accidentally killing a tree that we planted.
Okay. Nick, you had your hand up? Thank you.
I was just going to say that I was able to see the site yesterday, and it is, you know, predominantly, albeit invasive or native, it's almost entirely vegetated. You know, as you move from 12 to 14, I'm not sure which direction that is, but as you move from 12 to 14, if you're standing on the road, the native ground cover layer is the ground cover layer is predominantly native on 12 and then kind of transitions into more invasive on 14. And like Steve said, you know, there's definitely the opportunities for both mechanical removal and herbicide application. It really just depends on the species and the proximity to the natives that we want to retain. So, you know, there's things out there like, you know, Japanese barberry that are easily pulled out of the ground. And then there's other species that are more easily treated with herbicide application and create less disturbance, especially if it's in and around native vegetative ground cover and or, for example, some of the stump sprouts that are being preserved.
Okay, thank you. Janet, you had your hand up?
Yeah, my second question was with regard to the foliar spraying. And I just wanted a little clarity because there seemed to be a little discrepancy between the invasive plan and the herbicide waiver. The waiver itself outlines a triage approach with foliar spraying be the last option and only used on small discrete plants.
Mhm.
But the invasive plan identifies foliar spraying and indicates all invasive plant species in this management plan will likely be targeted using foliar spray. I guess it's a moot point if the proposal is that any herbicide use comes back to the commission for review and approval, the specific type of herbicide use. But I just wanted a little more clarity on that. You know, the other three treatment options for herbicides are very standard, but the foliar spray, especially in a larger area like this that's open where you could have some wind carry of herbicide, you know, that could be a little bit of a concern.
Okay, so I think it's a good point. So which is it? Is it wholesale foliar spraying or is
No.
it?
No, it's in the waiver. Maybe I need to make it more. That was the intent to have that in the ISMP. Maybe it didn't come through that clearly, but the intent is to have that triage approach in the ISMP as well. Where foliar spray would be targeted. No, we're not gonna spray the whole site.
Okay, so I'd like to let's make sure that happens. I don't want we can make that an item for our approval to, if we can get there tonight, so that we don't have to have that hold things up. Janet, did you put your hand back up?
Oh, no.
Okay, so so that covers and Jen, have we received an actual formal waiver request?
That is correct. That was dated May 3rd from Goddard.
Okay, great. Okay. So that seems to be part and parcel of the invasive management plan. So that addresses, it seems, simultaneously both the issues you brought up earlier. Is there anything else that you think needs to be brought up? Janet.
Oh, no, but just so, again, the process, I would recommend the commission vote and I can propose a motion to approve the herbicide waiver request and then a separate vote to formally approve the invasive plan. And then at our next meeting, we would formally amend the existing enforcement order to incorporate both those items.
So why can't we do all of that? You know, it's one of the concerns at our last meeting was to review things and then give them the go-ahead to start, you know, moving forward on this and not leaving anything, you know, with the caveat that as things come up, we reserve the right to make amendments to the enforcement order, but they'll generally be based on new information that comes in hand. Is there a reason for us not to be able to permit the waivers, permit the invasive management plan, and to incorporate this all as part of the enforcement order? Do we currently have an enforcement order?
Oh, yes.
Technically, we do. So that this would be an amendment to the existing enforcement order. It wouldn't be just the and so would this incorporate, would we also vote on accepting the restoration plan, which I don't believe we voted on? Would that be appropriate for this evening?
I believe you did vote to approve the restoration plan with the additional approvals for the invasive plan and waiver needed. But the restoration itself, the plantings, the materials, the schedule, the success criteria, I believe that was all approved 2 meetings ago.
Okay. Lori, do you know if, or I don't know if you were here at that point?
I will take a look at some notes and
Okay, while you're
I
doing that.
don't know
why
off
don't
the
we-
top of my head now.
While you're doing that, why don't we, Gina, why don't you propose the waiver wording for their invasive management?
Okay, let's
Oh,
see.
for herbicides.
Okay, so the motion would be the Conservation Commission approves the herbicide waiver request for this project, which will avoid the use of any herbicides within any wetland resource area. All removal of invasive plants within these areas will consist solely of manual hand removal. Treating invasive vegetation within the upland, mechanical removal methods will be prioritized over herbicide treatment whenever it can be practicable and effective. Herbicide treatment is allowed when it is selectively targeting invasive vegetation, and the highest level of care is used to avoid impacting any surrounding native vegetation. In accordance with the proposed herbicide waiver request and the invasives management plan, period, up. And then as proposed by the, as proposed in the herbicide waiver request, herbicide treatment will be conducted by a licensed applicator and at doses selected through coordination with the Dover Conservation Commission prior to any treatment, period.
So what I heard from Steve and Nick was that the baseline for dosing was going to be based on manufacturer's recommendations. Is that correct? Okay, I think so I want to clarify that clause where they would communicate with us, but their dosing is based on manufacturer's recommendations. And that would be what they would need to communicate with us unless there's a need to go
Well,
beyond this.
That's not how I heard the process being presented, and that is the very specific language in their
Okay.
waiver request.
So I had a couple questions. I just want to make sure we get this right. So you're saying no herbicide application within the wetland whatsoever?
That's right, that's in both their plan and their waiver request.
Okay, is that and who am I looking for? Steve Roberti. Oh, there you are. We have 2 pages worth of people, so excuse me as I'm looking for you. Is that your understanding as well, that you've stated that?
Yeah,
Okay.
we specifically just I mean, if we want to go there, we can, but there's not a lot of invasives in the wetlands, and we
No.
can. I think
And
we can-
normally, normally unless it's infested, manual extraction seems to work better. Okay, so given that, can I have somebody so move on that? Commissioners,
So moved.
thank you. Can I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Sarah,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Anna.
Aye.
And I'm an aye on that. Do we have any other commissioners? I didn't want to miss anybody. Okay, Janet, is there a second component to that, or did that wrap it all up in one?
No, so the second component is approval of the invasives management plan as submitted by Goddard and dated May 1st, 2024.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can somebody so move?
So moved.
Can I hear a
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Sarah,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
And I'm an aye on that. Okay. Is there anything outstanding relative to the restoration plan that needs to be voted on this evening? Okay. Question. Normally in things of this sort, or fairly frequently.
Yeah. Hand up, John.
Carolyn?
Hi,
Car-
good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. Go
Perfect.
ahead.
Thank you, Caroline Smith, representing the Rollins and the Slaughter homes. Before you moved on, I just wanted to jump in and maybe you were getting there, so stop me if you were, but we were hoping to get a vote to amend the enforcement order tonight as well.
And amended in what way?
Just to add the requirement that the 12 and 14 Miller Hill Road should restore the land according to the restoration plan, the herbicide waiver, invasive species management
Okay.
plan.
Yeah, so well, that's what I had asked about earlier, and which was that apparently, well, that's I'm glad you brought that up because we had left Lori to look that up to see whether or not we had actually voted on the restoration plan. And Lori, did you find anything on that?
I don't have the notes from that previous meeting. I have the
Okay.
last meeting notes,
Okay.
so sorry.
So
I
given
can't
that,
confirm that.
given that Anna?
I actually took notes for myself, and unless I was completely not paying attention, I believe we did vote on it on April 24th.
Mm-hmm. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we confirm a vote on accepting the restoration plan along with the amendments noted this evening. So I would, if somebody, that should be a simple motion, and let's see, Carolyn, would that cover your bases there?
So I was speaking of amending the December 2023 enforcement order to incorporate the restoration plan into the enforcement order.
Right, and that's supposedly we did that several weeks ago, but I understand that there seems to be
I don't, excuse me, John, this is Paul. I don't think so because the restoration plan wasn't there yet.
That's precisely why I've been leading down this road.
Right.
Yeah, so I agree with Caroline. I think
Mhm.
procedurally, you know, now that you've accepted the waiver request, you've accepted the invasives management plan. I think procedurally the thing to do is to you know, at the same time authorize and require that they be implemented through an updated enforcement order. So I think procedurally that's the next step.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's exactly why I kept pressing on this. So thank you. And if we did vote on it, which I don't recall, a little redundancy doesn't hurt. So I will entertain a motion from a commissioner that we accept. Do we have a date on the most recent restoration plan?
Well, Janet has a question before we jump.
Yeah, I just somebody can find out that date, and then Sam, you have your hand up, but you're muted. Still muted.
Now?
There we go.
Okay, sorry about that. A couple of things. There's been a dialogue offline that Crawford is working on the restoration implementation schedule. So we would like to ask that that is submitted by next Wednesday for review before the next hearing, if possible, while we have Nick on here. And then also to that point, and I think I made that an email, and probably Janet is thinking this as well, if we can have Steve issue the final stamped certified record set drawings, that would be, I think, what Caroline is also discussing for everyone's record, that we have the final version issued by next Wednesday as well. So then it could be referenced in all of these documents, because we are trying to finalize the license access agreement with Crawford. So we kind of like to tie this all up if possible ASAP.
Okay, thank you. Steve, likelihood of that being done by next Wednesday?
I mean, there've been no changes to it, so I just essentially need to remove the draft, I think, from the title. There's one thing that's missing from one of the plan sets, and it's just a detail on your no disturb marker. I've heard them on other hearings, but I don't have, like, I think there's like a technical detail I want to put on my plan set. That's the only thing I don't have, and I don't know if Janet can provide that or if somebody has a copy of that, or It's
Is
on
that
its own.
on bounds or signs? or
Yeah,
which-
like on the bounds or the signage, or if there's anything specific you want. I think I just have on there, see detail, and I don't have a detail.
Mhm.
Or I could
Janet,
just
do we
say,
have do we have a detail on that?
Yes, yes, so we do have a detail on that, and I will get that to you, Steve.
Okay.
I did want to, the other thing that would be important here, so I would strongly recommend not voting to amend the enforcement order until we have very specific language. The language is going to be very important in amending this, and I have not prepared that. I think that's going to fall on me to do. We had talked about sample language when we issued the December enforcement order. The other thing, Steve, we're also going to need to reference all new documents and revised documents. And it would be really helpful, Steve, if you could provide that to us and we can incorporate it in the amended enforcement order.
Okay. You're looking just for a list of those. So are you looking for a historical list with this at the end of that list?
No, the previous enforcement order referenced quite a bit of material. It would be referencing final documents, their title, aired, and what the final date was.
So here's my concern. This keeps getting moved 2 weeks at a time. And yet we make it very clear that this is an ongoing amendable document. And so I'm hearing from all parties concerned that they want to have a vote so that they can actually start to move forward and get things ready for the work they need to do. And so I am inclined to move that way. And if we want to formalize the wording at a different meeting, unless it's something that raises a supreme objection, I don't see that being an issue. But I think it behooves all parties to basically get a go-ahead on this. Nick, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, as far as the rough timeline and schedule, right now at this point in time, it's difficult to give an exact timeline. If it's approved tonight, that's certainly, entirely approved tonight. That's certainly a step in the right direction, but we have to meet with, there's the licensing agreement, like you said, and then we also have to meet with Goddard on site to flag everything in the field and do the initial site walkthrough. So it's a little bit, or not a little bit, it is dependent on as soon as we can get out there to do that with Goddard. I'd be able to give a schedule or a timeline as to how long I think each kind of phase, even drilled down into more detail, how long I think it's going to take to lay out the road, how long I think it's going to take to remove the wood chips and so forth. But the start date is totally dependent on meeting all the pre-work requirements, which includes a site visit with Goddard. And then from there, I wasn't sure if the Dover Conservation Commission requires any sort of, I know in a lot of the towns that we work in, there's a 5-day work start notification or a 10-day work start notification. Wasn't sure if there was something along those lines in Dover.
Typically, it's a 1 week where you notify Janet and or Paul, which is something we'll have to determine. And that's to take a look at any erosion control barriers and things of that nature. So that's how we would handle that. Also, everything you just mentioned, I would view as subject to communication coming in for communication, giving us an update. And then we would determine whether that just becomes part of an ongoing amendment so that we keep our paperwork lined up moving forward there.
Mr. Chairman, this is Greg McGregor. I'm sorry I'm invisible, Mr. Chairman.
You are, but you're also, there are a few people who had their hands up in front of you. If you can give us a moment, please, Mr. McGregor.
I'll wait.
Sam?
Yeah, just two quick things. So Nick, we totally get that. From our standpoint, it's just, we have an agreement that we require 24-hour notice for any access to the property, and we kind of want to give the reins over. So I'm okay with a dynamic high level schedule, but I just need to know, like, are you gearing up in 2 weeks or 3 months type of
Got
thing? Like, you know, you and I have some work we have to do with insurance and other items. And then just quickly to Steve. Steve, does Goddard have some kind of stamp or something as a SERP? Like, I guess in my typical experience, you know, there's a more formal stamped record set that then is recorded. Do you stamp your plan?
There's no
reference?
formal stamp with the SERP. I mean, there's a little, I don't know, when you're a SERP, you get a little logo you can put on something that has a number on it, like my SERP certification number, but it's not a stamp. I have a PWS stamp that kind of is similar to like an engineer stamp, but that's a little bit different. But if you want, I could put that stamp on it and sign it. So it's like people have like my actual, set, just to show that it's a stamp with a signature on it. If that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, I think we would. Yeah, I think we would appreciate that if we had some kind of a wet stamp signed version that's, the record set that will, help us, if you don't mind.
That's easy enough. Yeah. I mean, if we need to provide the hard copies and have them hand delivered, I can just stamp the copies that go out.
Yeah, and if we could do a copy to us and also maybe a scanned electronic version once it's signed, that would be fabulous.
Yeah, writing that down. Yep, got it.
Okay, thank you. Anna?
Yeah, so I'm sensitive to Janet's concern about getting good, clear language done. I also would like us to get out of the way getting work underway. Is there a version, and this could be a little fast and loose with procedure, but is there a version where we can vote to authorize and require implementation of the restoration plan and put off the amending enforcement order for next week? Does that get us anywhere? Because I think that might unblock the work while still giving us a chance to write some nice, clear enforcement language.
Run that by me again, please. Just that clause you were looking at.
I was thinking, could we vote to authorize and require, implementation of the restoration plan, and then vote on the enforcement order language next time?
Let's see. For the parties involved, does anyone have an objection to that? That would still give you the mandate.
This is Mr.
to move
McGregor
forward.
again.
Yep. Now it's your turn. Go for it.
Thank you. Anna has a good idea, but the point is you can accomplish both. If you will issue, that is, vote to issue an enforcement order as amended to incorporate a schedule that will be circulated and finalized. In other words, vote the substance of the amended enforcement order, or at least authorize Janet and team to prepare it as if final for the commission, subject to a schedule that will be finalized separately. In other words, we don't want the tail to be wagging the dog anymore. That's the point Caroline and Sam and Ken have been making.
Right. And what I'm hearing is that part of that schedule is going to be dependent upon the next few weeks of site visits to review everything so that they have a better idea of what schedule they could keep to. Is that correct? From Nick, is that?
I just have a question then. If we are to put together a schedule, the schedule, this is what I assume. If we are to put together a schedule, I'm assuming that we're going to put together a schedule, assuming that we're going to get 100% approval at the next hearing, or am I assuming this hearing? I just want to know when the clock starts ticking to start the schedule.
Well, it seems from what you've told me that in order to have a better idea of what that schedule could be, you need a site visit. Is that correct?
Well, correct. But if I know that we have approval tonight, I can make some assumptions and assume that we can meet with Goddard early next week or something, something in the near future. And then produce the schedule of work from there, as opposed to if it's going to be technically approved 2 weeks from now, then I know that I have to schedule that initial site visit, presumably, or at least the boots on the ground work, presumably not until 2 weeks from today.
Okay, so here's where I'm thinking. I'm trying to, so that we can, in a concise way, succinct way, address all of this in just a few sentences. I'm hearing that we amend the existing enforcement order tonight to incorporate the restoration plan. And again, I was asking for somebody to give me the most recent date for the restoration plan. Has anyone come up with that?
I have May 1st written
I
down.
think it should be May 1st. Yeah, that's when the last one was submitted.
I would see is having a move to amend the existing enforcement order to incorporate the restoration plan dated May 1st. With the understanding that at our next meeting, let me think, more formal language incorporating what has been voted on this evening will be addressed, as well as review of a schedule produced by Goddard and Crawford. Does that seem like it hits things?
Yes.
Okay, Janet?
So I don't want to beat this to death, but I agree with, I believe, Greg's sentiments where we can approve the restoration plan and its implementation in accordance with the May 1st plan. And we do not need to amend the enforcement order to do that. That's kind of memorializing that vote. So, but I do think the language is important. We have to reference all the plans. And so we could do that at the next meeting without holding anything up. So again, my suggestion would be a motion that the commission approves the restoration plan and its implementation in accordance with the May 1st plan.
With formal wording to be presented at our next meeting. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think it has to be part of the vote. I think that would be.
I see what you're going there, and since I've mentioned over and over again that this is a target that is open to continuous amendments, does any of the parties involved have an issue with us approving the restoration plan and then formalizing the actual amendment of said plan to our next meeting? Do people feel that gives you the ability to move forward and be prepared for things? Nick?
Yeah, I certainly don't have an issue with it. I just want to clarify that if that is the way things move forward, that we can assume that we can start making plans tomorrow, albeit our communication with Soderholm, that we can start moving forward tomorrow with setting up site visits and laying out the initial stages of the project.
Yep, and it's basically what we're looking at is saying we have the restoration plan. We want to go start on it. It's complicated, so we want to have the right wording. We will have that wording at the next meeting. So and that wording will be based on what we're approving tonight. Is that where okay? Sam.
Yes, thank you. So we wholeheartedly support this strategy, given that Nick wasn't at the last meeting or 2 meetings ago when we did have you vote to approve. And further, given he needs to have kind of non-work started with these meetings, we do encourage that this all starts so that we don't keep kicking the can down.
I mean, I'm not.
The question who was talking?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You're not in its view. It's on the phone.
We're Bensel there. Who I don't know who you are, but
right now it's video. I'm looking at their video. I'm off. I'm not on.
There we go. Okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Sam,
so yeah, so we do encourage that Nick take the vote from 2 meetings ago and use that we are all in support of this and continue to move forward post haste with Steve for all these other meetings, start to create this schedule so that we
Mhm.
start to know when erosion control and other work is going to begin immediately. So we would support that and the commission's
Okay.
support.
Okay, and Caroline, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. I think what Greg had proposed was similar to what Chair Sullivan that you had language you had stated. You know, the Rollins, certainly we would love a vote to approve this restoration plan, but we would also like the board to vote, the commission to vote to amend the enforcement order subject to the specific language that you can revise and wordsmith next meeting. I think that would give more clarity to the situation and give more comfort to all parties moving forward that the enforcement order has been amended for the third time, and that you know, they're authorized to do this. So I think we are looking for a motion, if the commission would allow it, to amend the enforcement order dated December 2023 to incorporate the restoration plan, which incorporates the invasive species management plan. And that would just give clarity and allow us to get this year-long hurdle hopefully behind us. So we wouldn't have to maybe come back to the next meeting.
So here's where, having voting on something that is then subject to coming back to the next meeting. I'd rather, as this has evolved, I'd rather just accept this restoration plan of May 1st with the understanding that the proper wording, the proper formal wording for that will be dealt with at the next meeting. You know, at the end. I think we're very close semantically. Let's see. I'm open to. I mean, it's very similar to what I said. I'm starting to get pushed and pulled in terms of, you know, I think we're all saying the same thing.
So John, you just want to be organized for the next meeting for us to be able to close the hearing well,
I'm not going to say never. This hearing will be ongoing.
Exactly. I don't mean to close the hearing, but like okay.
Okay, so no, so the
I'm
idea
trying
is
to help you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So I basically looking at we are looking to accept that we've already accepted the invasive management plan. We've accepted the herbal management plan, herbicide management plan. That's all been formally accepted. That can be incorporated in whatever wording we have at the next meeting. I'm looking to accept the restoration plan of May 1st as part of the ongoing enforcement order to be. I'm trying to think of an attorney may help me out here in terms of the to be formally drafted, to be in effect tonight, but formally drafted at our next meeting. Does that cover people's bases? And meanwhile, we will be amending things as we go forward as new information comes in, but this gives us a couple deadlines to reach, you know, immediately. And so I would, am I hearing any objections? I would like to close this out because we're not the only people in the world tonight. I would entertain a motion to move in that manner. Oh, you could feel me looking at you, Tim.
Tim, do you want to do it or do you want me to do
it? How about move to conditionally approve the restoration plan?
No, I don't want to condition. I want to accept the restoration plan of May 1st.
Okay, move to accept the restoration plan of May 1st, subject to formal approval and wording at our next meeting.
How about with formal approval to be submitted at our next meeting?
Okay.
Rather than being subject, because I want this restoration order to be the main one that we're starting with. I want everyone to feel comfortable. This is where we're going forward. We've had three parties, experts review all this for quite some time. They put in a tremendous amount of work. Everyone is seems to be on the right page, on the same page here. So given what Tim just mentioned, I will entertain a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Sarah,
Aye.
Amy,
Hi.
Tim,
Aye.
Anna,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, so that's what's done there. A couple at the next meeting, one of the things that has come up is very often on things of this nature, there's a bond that is brought up. I'd like the parties to give that some thought as to how that should be handled, if it should be handled. Is there an agreement enough that has that enforceable outside of a bond? I believe for us, if there were a bond involved, that it would be only on the land within our jurisdiction. You know, that the bond that we would be looking for, if we do so, would be just confined to that. I don't want to bollocks up the works here, but I just wanted to bring that up because we have had bonds in the past, and I know everyone's intentions are good here, but let's give that some thought so that we can discuss it at our next meeting. Are there any other issues that we may want to discuss at our next meeting? And at that meeting, we've already discussed the within the next week, you'll have plans available for review. And at the next meeting, given where we are, Nick, you'll be meeting on site. Do you think you'll have a preliminary schedule or something open to review?
Yeah, I think we can definitely put something together now that we know that we can start planning basically, and we're not waiting on something else.
No, this is the plan. And the only other question that has come up, and I believe still hasn't been addressed, but as I said, we want to get this moving, is that we have a shortfall in basal inches within the 100-foot buffer in terms of doing that. And the question there was, it's not as a percentage of things, it's relatively small. But it still has not been fully addressed. And I'd asked at the last meeting to give some thought to either how to handle that. Our bylaw allows for outside planting. We're open to a fund. I'm not expecting this to be a significant cost, but it's something that is part of this ongoing concern, just so that we can cross T's and dot I's here. I think we were shy under 200 inches. And it's something that we can't get another 200 inches in there and maintain survivability.
Oh, yeah, there are two more.
And so let's, again, this is part of an ongoing thing, but I'm not going to let this hold anything up. And I don't expect it to be, based on our bylaw, I don't expect it to be certainly quoting compared to the overall cost of things to be a significant item there. So let's see. And Caroline, you had your hand up? Oh, no, Chris did. I'm sorry. It's over your face, Caroline. So sorry. Chris?
Hi, sounds like we'll talk about this more. But I just wanted to say on that point that you just made, that the success criteria for the project is higher than usual and normal, and it will require ongoing maintenance to get to 95% and beyond. So I just wanted to mention that for the commission to consider as you're considering your bylaw and those issues.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I actually think that's that was something that had crossed my mind, and I think it's a very, very valid point on that. That with the 5-year plan, the net amount of basal inches that will be should exist, you know, at 5 years out, may come very close to what that shortfall is. And our normal our normal standards are lower than 95%. I'm just looking for a rationale here, and I'm open to things just like that, because I think it's with the infrastructure you're putting in place to ensure the survivability. I think that's a valid option there.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, Nick.
And just one, I don't want to make this take any longer, I'm sorry. But just one more thing is that I think, you know, after the X amount of years of maintenance and these plantings being established for 5 years, I think that the combination of, you know, the plantings becoming established and growing, in addition to the stump sprouts that are existing on site, both the ones that are counted and not counted, I think that there's going to be a significant additional increase in basal inches based on just what's out there already.
No, and I think addressing this even in a narrative form may be very helpful. I think Janet, our normal level of survivability for in our bylaw, is it 75%?
Yes, 75%. Yeah.
Okay.
5%.
So you get 20% that you're dealing with. I think you may be able to come up with a narrative where you can address that pretty clearly. So, but I did, you know, had been brought up by another commissioner at a previous meeting, and I wanted to bring that up, and I've been giving it some thought that was parallel to yours, Nick, and I think that just a little extra thought so we can get that in a narrative form may address that. So, I appreciate it. Carolyn?
Hi, yes, thanks. I just to clarify on what you just said, who are you proposing to put something in narrative form? I'm unclear.
The narrative form, I would expect that to be because it's relative to our wetland area and our buffer. It would seem that that Steve Roberti or Goddard, who's Steve, you work for trustees, is that right? Or
No, I'm with Goddard Consulting. Chris,
so
yeah.
So that would be on your end. You know, you can discuss it
Yeah,
with
I mean, I would work with Peter and the two landowners to come up with.
But I
some-
think, but
yeah.
Goddard is, you know, and Goddard has dealt with the survivability and restoration in other areas of Dover before. So I think given the movement towards survivability and infrastructure, as I mentioned, you should have some way to address that. That may not require anything additional, but we'll see once you work out the narrative. Sam.
And Chair Sullivan, I had another comment, but I was just clarifying the narrative part, if you don't mind.
Yes.
We agree with the survivability and what Chris said, but just to make the commission aware, this decision of whether the commission will be requiring offsite mitigation or a fee is holding up our private negotiations behind the scenes.
So that's I figured it would that something like I figured there's while I pick something up. I figured it can't be this easy as we see in our public face here. I figured there was other stuff going on in the background. As I mentioned, that's why I wanted to address it, because we had a commissioner address it. I basically have given you the road map on how to address it, and that you will probably be able to address it, if not in full, very, very close to it relative to the percentages because of the enhanced survivability. So I've addressed it to bring it to your attention. I've also given you a mechanism where you may be able to make the case that you need to do that your net effect is will exceed that. And just give it some thought. We're not going to hold anything up, and it will certainly go towards a large portion of it, so that if there's anything remaining, it's not going to be significant.
Great. And
on that.
Is Goddard able to get that by next Wednesday submitted, just to keep this moving?
We will. It's Peter Brooks. We will.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. But do I mean, you know, what we've just discussed, I think there's some very good points that that were brought up, and I think I wanted them to come out because the survivability is it's a much higher threshold than our bylaw. And I think that gives you some leeway there to apply some of that towards that. So so Sam, this is you're leading us out on this.
Yep, just real quick, would you be opposed, obviously we have a fairly large parcel. The trespass and destruction took place against our client on their private property. We have opportunities to deploy some plantings potentially elsewhere within the CR on our property. So I think that's what Caroline was alluding to is, we would prefer to maybe handle this directly with 12 and 14 Miller Hill. And would it appease the commission if we noted that and say, we've come to an agreement and we're going to plant some other trees, while not necessarily in the buffer zone, but in the CR? Because I think TTOR and the Rollins and ourselves would be in support of that as an option.
Is the town named in that CR at any point there? Sally, you're nodding your head.
That's a Sally question.
Yes, the town is named in the purposes of the CR.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the purposes is to enhance Dover Conservation Commission land that abuts that CR.
Mm-hmm. Okay, why don't you incorporate that into your narrative, if you'd like. But our whole point here is, I wanted to bring this up. I don't see this as being a sticking point from the Conservation Commission point of view, given the survivability. And if we have a little left over, the idea of applying it to something that is more proximal to the site as opposed to somewhere else in town, I think the commission would be in favor with that as well. I give you some guidance there. Okay. Thank you, everyone. And I'm glad that we've all made it to this point where we've had a number of votes this evening, and we should have literally feet on the ground next week. So I appreciate that. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Good night.
Okay. Next on our agenda is an update on 29 Saddle Ridge Road. So Paul, why don't you fill us in on this? And I guess there's been some other documents that have come out, and let's try to get an idea of where we actually stand on this.
Yeah, so I had submitted last submitted on April 20 a letter where I had some information on biological observations out there, as well as ponding levels. I had talked about, the criteria for certification. You recall, there's kind of an oddity in that you need to have 5 egg masses, but no specific number of tadpoles. There were a number of tadpoles out there. I submitted pictures of what I said I thought was a wood frog tadpole, and also some ponding information that on that date in April that I was out there. The ponding that I observed exceeded the 1/4 acre foot and obviously 6 acre foot under the bylaw ILSF thresholds. In response to that, Goddard submitted a letter, most recently revised May 21, where they first of all question my wood frog characterization, and I will tell you, the tadpole that I observed was in fact very large for a wood frog, but it did have, wood frogs have very distinctive. I'm looking at the Kenny and Byrne Field Guide to Vernal Pools, and they talk about coppery flecking over the belly and side. And in my view, what I had in my hand in my picture, which I can share, had that characteristic. I do acknowledge that especially given the time of year, that the specimen that I had was very large and you know, more typically the size of a bullfrog. So Goddard's questioning that. With respect to the ILSF issue, they point out that March was very wet, you know, about 4 inches above normal. And the standard is, you know, once a year to pond to the requisite volume. And it's really hard to, you know, to look at 1 year or even a couple of years, and decide, you know, whether what you're seeing is representative of an annual maximum condition. Lastly, Goddard, in their recent submittal, have a picture of looks like a fairly substantial fish in there that they identified as a channel catfish. Now, one of the core criteria for vernal pools, you know, kind of a basic definition, is that a vernal pool must be free of adult fish populations. So, you know, they have this one picture of a catfish of some kind. It's obviously that, so you know, so you're left jurisdictionally. If you remember, there were two potential triggers for jurisdiction. One was the ILSF state, local and possibly state, and the second was under local regulations. Even if the ponding area didn't meet the ILSF annual requisite volume, it could be jurisdictional simply and solely as a vernal pool. So there's a number of issues that you have to kind of render judgment on.
Thank you. So I guess what we're dealing with is we have a body of water of some form in somebody's backyard that had been had grass around it at some point. Was not a golf course by any stretch, which we're more than happy that it's not. There was a bunch of work done on it. My question is, if it's not a vernal pool, but now you have a fish, in partly due to the fact that it has a fish in it, and normally they're mutually exclusive. Does the existence of the fish call it something else? Is it a pond? Is it something, you know, as we're supposed to protect the wildlife that's involved in these sorts of things. Would the existence of catfish, which is kind of fascinating, would that itself trigger any sort of protection?
It really doesn't, because you have to have, you know, it has to fit in a box of you know, a resource area definition. And then once it does, then you have your various interests, including wildlife habitat, to protect. But if it's, you know, if it doesn't fit, you know, in a box under your regs and under the state regs, then you can't apply resource area protection to it.
Okay. So and I was out there, I believe I was out there in January at some point, probably once a month, January, February, March. And I read what Goddard had to say about the amount of rain that we've had, but actually that's not addressed in our definitions per se. And it does seem as the years have gone by, the last few years, that we've had periods of extended rain in virtually every year, except for maybe 22, and even then it recovered. And we just had a long-term water report for the town, which basically showed that we have a historical trend towards recovery within the same year, even in drought years. So
Should it be protected or
not? I guess the other question is that when that water level was higher, there was a hydrological connection to the water flow on the property next door as well. So part of me has seen you know, we've clearly have exceeded the ILSF area requirement and depth requirements considerably. And so it would seem to me that that's, you know, that's what we're looking at. The vernal pool aspect, is there a chance that wood frog or whichever frog you saw, that due to the how warm a winter we had, did you notice anywhere across the state where vernal pool season started earlier? This year?
I didn't, but I did see on my first inspection out there, I did see wood frog egg mass early, and then there was some breeding later. So there was kind of a you know, a two phase wood frog breeding out there.
Okay, and our non-wood frog amphibians, do some of them exist as non-indicative of vernal pool?
Correct.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I guess part of it comes down to we have a wet area. There's judgments here, whether it's it fits ILSF or if it's a vernal pool. I think we have enough information to say that certainly in the last year, it you know, we put the stakes out there and we said if it gets any higher, it's an ILSF. The stakes disappeared. They ended up underwater. There was so much water there. So that so we clearly have that. My question is, what's the point? What's the homeowner want to do with this? They have a body of water that I don't see any reason for us to allow to be filled in. So what is the end goal here? Can anybody tell me?
Yeah, that's what I want.
Anybody from Goddard?
Hey there, Zoe from Goddard Consulting.
Mhm.
Paul, thank you. You summarized everything very well. I would say maybe the applicant can explain his intentions here a little bit better, what he's looking to do. I would say that maybe considering the ILSF calculations, I think with finding that it was over, I think it exceeded the quarter acre.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry, I thought I heard someone talking.
Yeah, no, somebody has their mic on, so we'll
So I think when he went out on his last inspection, it had calculated to be over the quarter acre, the state threshold. I just want to note that maybe considering the excavation that took place and the widening of the ponded area itself, taking that into consideration of how full it might be. And then with that being said, also the amount of rain that we've gotten. When we did our calculations and evaluation last year, at times when it was the worst possible scenario, the high groundwater and heavy rainfall the month prior, and it hadn't exceeded those stake elevations at that time. So just wanted to note that. And then, yeah, if the homeowner wants to chime in and answer your question.
So I'm just, as we have a resource area here. Was within 700 cubic feet at one point at a very low point that we saw, and then we had a bunch of rain. I don't know where it stands currently. Anybody, you know, I'm willing to bet that it's still extended out beyond the stakes there. And we have fish as well as amphibians. It's, you know, it's sort of ready-made for our sort of protection. Where is the homeowner? I'm looking, I have so many people still on here.
I think I will channel Tim and say that you know, if you make a wetland resource, that's your fault. Right? So if the fact that the homeowner might have made it bigger and more attractive to regulation, that's not a reason for us to be lenient, I guess.
So
I
I
think-
guess
Thank you.
by the time we finish this, the concern the homeowner voiced at one point is small children who might fall into it. They're going to be big enough to not worry about that. So so is the homeowner on tonight?
He should be, but maybe he's not
Because
there.
I didn't know if the homeowner wanted to, I never heard that they actually wanted to fill it in, but I couldn't get any, I don't recall being, getting clarification on what it is they wanted to do with it. One of the initial questions was, can they cleaned up the brush and things of that sort and some of the organic debris that had accumulated and probably allowed for things to come closer to the surface. And then could they put the grass back? That was probably the most benign thing that I recall hearing. Now I'm not really sure, but I think the general sense, we have somewhat ambiguous information on this, but it still seems like this is clearly a resource area. Janet, you had your hand up? Can you unmute?
Yeah, you asked the question like, well, what's our particular interest here or our responsibility? And if it is a resource area, which it looks like it is, isolated to flooding, under our bylaw and our regs and also the state WPA, the whole list of interests are presumed significant here. I think we want to be reasonable, but if it is a resource area, it would be, the burden would be on the applicant to hire a consultant to evaluate the area under the interests, under our bylaw in the act, and then propose restoration. And so I think in our original enforcement order that we issued way back in, I'm not sure when, quite a while ago.
Yeah, last year, maybe, I don't know.
That was basically what we required, that it really delineated, a determination made, and then a restoration plan submitted. And clearly, with the statement we had from a previous owner that there had been an aeration fountain, and so this area had been previously altered. So I think, we'd be looking for something reasonable to protect the interests of this wetland resource area, but work with the homeowner so that it's a reasonable restoration.
So we know it's man-made, but as Amy mentioned, once it's man-made, if it's attractive to wildlife interests, it seems pretty fecund right at the moment. I mean, it's rare that we run across catfish, so and I'm assuming it lived in the mud while things were, I don't know if they can live if you never have any water there. Paul, do you have an answer for that?
They can survive a little bit in the mud, but they're probably the most hardy in that regard. The other thing they can tolerate is very low oxygen levels, which you would expect here in the summer. It's going to get dry and hot and then anoxic.
So I think so how do we, Janet, or Paul, how do we formally determine that this is a ILSF? And as it seems by observation, based on the letter of our regulations, it is an ILSF. So then in the protection of an ILSF versus a vernal pool in a previously disturbed area such as a house, I'm not sure there's that much of a distinction in terms of how we want to proceed with this. Zoe?
Hi, thank you. Should we, so we're more focusing on calling it a resource area as ILSF. Are we considering the post disturbance state or pre, like before?
I don't think can we determine the pre-disturbance area?
I think the calculations that we had provided prior were under its existing conditions, and then I'd have to double check if if it,
How could you were called in after it had been worked on?
right, I think if I remember correctly, maybe using like the contour elevations that are provided, like on Mass Mapper prior to disturbance and how that changed and how it looks now out there. And I think there was some comparisons done, but I'd have to double check that.
So
Why does it
our job
matter?
is not to figure out your landscaping needs or things of that, or your client's landscaping needs. I think it's clear that this is a resource area, that we've wasted, not wasted, we spent a fair amount of time going back and forth, ILSF versus vernal pool. At the very least, it's an ILSF. Okay. Given that information, why don't you go back to your client and come up with a proposal on how to restore things. Given that we've already given you some guidance that we understand it's a man-made, previously existing circumstance. However, we also think it's subject to our bylaws. And we're really
Hi,
I'm
sorry, Chair, this is Adam. This is the homeowner. I was having difficulties with the Zoom call. I was unable to get my audio working. But what I heard is that somehow with all the previous calculations, I guess from the last meeting, I presume the commission had agreed and understood that the pond did not meet the volume requirement for ILSF.
Let me stop you right there. We never did that. That's why we asked for the stakes to be put out there. We wanted to ascertain whether it was. And so the stakes showing us on multiple occasions, both Paul and myself going out, it was clearly those stakes were there that if the water reached those stakes, it was going to be at a certain elevation, it would be ILSF. It far exceeded that. So at the very least, it is ILSF.
But isn't that deep? Didn't that depend on the days that you observed that it was over that? Do we have documentation that there wasn't more than a 1-year storm event?
You asked that at one point. At one point, you called me and actually looking things up on a storm-to-storm basis. No, it didn't qualify. It didn't qualify for more than that. So no, I think at this point we're it is unless any commissioners have something to add, this is jurisdictional. And we're now looking.
Okay, wait.
We're now.
Okay.
No.
I think it's clearly jurisdictional, and the question is, how do we want to go from here?
No, okay. So how do we just get to decide that it is without actual evidence, or what are we doing?
Come on.
Excuse me, Paul. Actual evidence on cubic footage of water that you've observed out there, even beyond immediate days after a storm.
Yeah, I mean, I relied on the Cheney topography and the Cheney survey stakes, and those calculations. There were calculations provided. I don't have them right in front of me about basically what elevations would be needed to reach the threshold, and based upon those, by my applying that, I converted the elevation to a volume, which I provided in my April 20 letter.
And did it exceed significantly the threshold?
It exceeded the bylaw threshold by a fair margin, and it was very close to the state threshold.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So
on April 20th,
on April 20th, Barden, excuse me. you wanted us to, we observe things. We have climate data that's showing that we're going to have more and more large storms and so forth. So this is not going to change on a year to, going forward. It is, so what you have in front of you is, it is ILSF. Your wetlands scientists have come forward with an argument that it is not a vernal pool. We are open to work with you, but basically we're letting you know that it is jurisdictional in some form, and you now need to come back to us and tell us what you're going to do about it. In other words, that's it. It is not, there is no more argument about puddle in your pond, the puddle in your backyard. It is jurisdictional. What are you going to do about the violation, and how are you going to clean it up, and where do you want to go going forward? And as we said, we will be reasonable, but we're not going to keep re-arguing this whole thing. That part of it is over. It is jurisdictional. Zoe.
Okay, so it is jurisdictional based on ILSF. Is this the only thing?
Based on, well, no, we're letting, so we're willing to not argue the vernal pool nature of it because of some of the conflicting evidence here.
Okay.
So the thing there is, you can review vernal pool versus ILSF, but the main thing what we wanted to ask you when you weren't here was, what did you want to do with it? Did you want to fill it in, or did you want to just landscape around? What's your goal?
Okay, so from the beginning, I explained fully why we were doing the work in the backyard. I have a 2 and a 4-year-old. The middle of the pond is 3 feet deep at least. I didn't want my kids to drown. That's why I wanted to reduce the depth of the pond. You're saying the pond is jurisdictional. You're saying that it meets all these requirements. From last fall, I went to the extent to hire and do all this spending to try to show you, to get the volume estimation and do all these things that you guys have asked for. And from that point on, the requirement was you needed to do an observation for a one year storm event. Okay, that's what I thought that we were gonna look at, and so that's what this whole thing was about. I didn't think that we could just randomly look at it when during the month of April we had several heavy rain that would be considered more than a 1 year storm event. Do we just randomly get to decide this?
Is
this how this works?
Varden, I'm going to mute you if you don't give Paul a chance. Okay.
Yeah, this is Paul Vadran. I think you're misapplying the definition a little bit, because the standard is not a 1 year storm event. The standard is annual ponding volume. Now there is a process for using the annual storm event to estimate what that annual volume would be, but there's a huge weakness in that process, namely that process instructs us, and this is the Mass DEP policy. The policy instructs us to do the calculation, but then to incorporate groundwater, and that's very difficult. So what the commission has done is relied on an observation, and then make an inference, about the likelihood of that being an annual event. So it's really the annual event, not the annual storm.
Okay,
excuse me, by event, I mean an annual condition is better.
And let me just interrupt. Varden, just a moment. I was out there in January 9th. I have pictures that exceeded where the stakes were. So it wasn't March, wasn't April, it was January. So what we have is multiple.
Didn't we talk about from January? Didn't we talk about how there was a lot of snow back then and how that could impact? How that would be considered more.
The whole thing, what you're looking at multiple impacts over the course of 6 or 7 months. Well, they all, if you're gonna have, if it's gonna exceed that volume multiple times, not just once, but multiple times at different seasons of the year, it's jurisdictional. So you wanted us to do it, you put the stakes in there, you hired people to give us the guidance in terms of what was required. And I don't know how it looks today, but for 4 months running, not just after a rainstorm, it exceeded those stakes. So go back, figure out with your wetlands experts what it is you actually want to do. Now, and your option is, if you're that concerned about your kids, a fence for X number of years, until they're big enough to not worry about that, is one option. But we're not going to give you those options. That's up to you to do that. Over the course of 4 months, that exceeded. Every time we stopped by, it exceeded where the stakes were. So it's not a one-time event. It is jurisdictional. We're not trying to pull anything over you. For a third of the year, it exceeded the volume, not just once after the storm.
Okay, so this is the problem. Like, Chairman John, this is the problem. Whenever you visit, you have to give a date, and I need to be able to look at what has happened prior to these dates, because that matters.
Okay.
The volume of rain and snow that occurred has to contribute to what you actually see in the body of water. You randomly come and then.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
I'm not saying you're making it up.
Wait.
No. Okay.
You're making it up.
I'd like to suggest that oh, go ahead, John. I'll talk after.
No, so just I've muted Varden because we can't get a word in here, and I will unmute you in a moment. Janet, you've had your hand up for quite a while.
Yes, so for clarification, I'm going to read from the bylaw regulation definition of ILSF. Says it's the boundary of isolated land subject to flooding, is the perimeter of the area which would be inundated during the 100-year frequently storm event, or, this is a very important, or the maximum extent of flooding observed or recorded in said area, whichever is larger.
Excuse me though, Janet, I think you're reading from the boundary determination portion of the definition. We have to, what we're talking about is the lower level, the threshold for existence, rather than the boundary determination.
Okay.
Do you follow?
Yes. So there is the volume threshold first. Yes.
So my point on this, and actually, Anna, then you had a question?
Oh, I was just going to suggest that we know this is jurisdictional. We know this is an enforcement action. We should probably set a deadline for an enforcement order for a restoration plan. We don't have to make it tomorrow, but I think we're a few months away from the July meetings. That seems fair. And leave it up to a fence. Seems like a great idea. I love a fence. But let this get underway.
Are we agreeing? Are we saying that this is jurisdictional based on ILSF? Is that
Correct.
it?
Yes.
So the only thing I got to do, the only thing we need to do, because here's the thing, I don't believe you have evidence that it is an ILSF, because all the evidence that you have, what you said, you've done observation that it's beyond the stick, and you have never once say, okay, prior to these dates, it's been X months where I haven't had a substantial rain, a substantial event that would cause the water level to be that much. So if you don't have that, how can you just say that it is an ILSF? So then are you just picking on my property?
No,
anybody else, this is what I'm saying. Anybody else who has a hole in the ground anybody else who has a hole in the ground in their backyard, right, after a heavy rain event can become an ILSF. So make sure you go to everybody else's in the neighborhood, everybody else, anywhere you see a similar situation as mine, whether they're digging, whether whatever, make sure you call it an ILSF as well. Because what you're not doing, you're not looking at the previous days, the prior days, how much rain there was. If you are, please provide documentation that you have done that, and then it's fine.
Hold the phone away from your mouth because you're distorting and it's way too loud. Number
And
two,
can I
go
say
back, no,
something?
excuse me just a minute. Go back to Goddard. You want to make a case on any of that? Go ahead and make it. I actually have been digging all spring. Water tables have gone up and down. There were times when water tables were actually very low when I happened to go by and you were well beyond the stakes. So
can you provide the dates, Chair John? Can you please provide the dates?
Excuse me. We're done here because we're determining it's ILSF. It's if in a period of 4 months, every time we go by, it is beyond the stakes, then you can't say that that's a rare occasion. So that's where it is. Go back to Goddard and come up with a plan for the restoration. Let me I just wanted to have some commissioners step in with some comments here. Sarah?
No, I was just gonna say, we're all volunteers. We're all trying to do the best thing for the environment and for what we are charged to do for Dover. So for you to talk over the commissioner, the chair is not appropriate. So that's all I'm gonna say.
Well, I think the other thing is even though we're all in favor of the Wetlands Protection Act, we're also neighbors.
No, but we're all volunteers, John. That's what I'm saying.
No, I understand, but we're not trying to, our job, we don't go around trying to take advantage of people. So we're just, so Anna, you had a comment?
Oh, I was going to suggest if commissioners are okay with it, maybe we should move to set a deadline. I think July 10th is 3 meetings away and an awful long time.
Okay, let me talk, Goddard, Zoe.
Hi, thank you. I did just, for the record, want to just clarify the numbers if that's okay for the ILSF for what Ecotech found out there. Can I do that?
Yeah, did you can check with Ecotech. Did Goddard go out at any point to observe?
So we have not gone out to observe since the last time. When we went out there for the vernal pool inspection, we didn't, we didn't.
Okay, because that might have helped things as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. Your question to Paul?
Oh, yeah. So I just wanted to clarify that. So let's see here. Okay. So when he went out on March 19th, he observed the water levels at approximately 219.5, which is less than a 1/6 acre threshold. The volume contour elevation at 220 is measured at 7,030 square feet approximately. So it would be under the both the state and the local bylaw for ILSF on that day.
Agreed.
And then on April 10th, Ecotech reported a water level of approximately 221.7. And this we have with a volume at contour elevation 221, it totals 11,869 cubic feet. So this would indicate that on this day it did surpass the state threshold by anywhere between maybe like 900 to 1,000 cubic feet. And so I just wanted to set that because I think there was some mixed things set out there.
I may have misquoted my own findings. So thank you. So yeah, on March 19, right, I agree. And then on April 10, right, 221.7 based upon measuring from the Cheney stakes.
Okay. Yeah. So with that being said, I think it, was slightly over on that day. But I do feel like we have a substantial amount of evidence from all the times that we went out last year and reported up until now. This was the first reporting of it being over 219 and taking into consideration all the rainfall. We all know that we're getting so much. But it, you know, Paul, I think you even agreed in your report that this volume of water may not be indicative of a once a year observation. Thank you for, that's my comments.
I don't, I try in my reports to not, to just prevent the facts, leave the interpretation and the application of the regs up to the commission. But again, and this really is to answer a question of Audrey's, about the timing. Again, to meet the threshold, it only has to occur on one day over the course of the year. And yes, in areas that are close to the threshold, that day will, that day or days will occur in the wetter part of the year. You're not going to get, you're not going to use September precipitation. You're not going to use September ponding volumes typically to do your ILSF calculation. You're going to do those calculations in the winter and the spring, and those observations. So again, it only takes that once a year to occur. And the chairman's point is that just anecdotally, this is not a situation where there was a hurricane level event flooded an area that was much drier and had only minimal ponding all spring. His point is that it had significant ponding all spring without getting into the weeds on every particular day. The ponding was significant, it was prolonged, and on 410, it was at 221.7, which I measured up from the ground at the Cheney stake.
I had a question, Zoe. The stakes themselves, if the water went past the stakes, was that an indication of it having reached the ILSF boundary?
No, you need about a foot and 7/10 of a foot.
I did not ask you, Arden. I'm asking the wetland scientist.
Thank you. So at the contour elevation 219, the volume is 3,736. So in order to surpass, you would need approximately, a little over a foot.
A foot height or foot height or foot horizontal?
Vertical.
Height.
Vertical, okay. Because the picture I have from January has around 5 feet of water extending beyond one of the stakes horizontally. And I didn't know what that stake was set at and what it was. I was under the impression that the stake either was marked on the stake or somewhere that was supposed to be the limit of what would be required for jurisdiction. And
I don't think that's true, John. If you look at my April 20 report, my March 19 picture has a good view that shows the horizontal extent, which I'm going to guess is 2 or 3 feet on March 19, which was an elevation of 219.5. So at that point, with a half a foot of water, it extended out 2 or 3 feet.
Okay, so merely going beyond the stake wasn't an indication. It had to go up the stake as well.
It had to go up the stake and more than, certainly more than 3 feet. It had to be. This is the rear stake I'm talking about, because obviously the topography is different at the different stakes.
Because I'm just trying. I'm going to see if I can share a picture, because I guess part of this is looking for clarification of what we're looking at. Let me just see if I can figure that out here. Let me save it. Okay. So let's see if I can. Let's see. Nope, I'm sorry. Oh. Can anyone still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Everything went off my screen. I'm not showing it. I'm showing something on the order of 4 to 5 feet over to the incised edge on the right side and beyond the stake. There were times when I believe, Paul, you were out there and the stakes themselves were covered. At least the back stake. I think the water was over.
I think so. I think they were significant water, but I don't recall that they.
So I think what we're running into is the definition of this and what's observable. And on on several days running, it was observable to be above the threshold. It sounds like it was close to 11,000 cubic feet there. Go ahead and Zoe, if you want to go ahead and come up with a reason as to why that is not jurisdictional based on our bylaw, I present it, but we're done arguing about certain times a year. Our bylaw doesn't say specific times a year. And we've had observations where this extended considerably beyond those stakes at that point. And it could be that the excavation itself may have prevented it from going up, from some of the work that had been done. At this point, we're looking at, I think we're looking at a restoration plan, or in a restoration plan within the next 6 weeks, or prior to that, something that really rebuts this conclusively as to why it's not jurisdictional.
Right. So, like I said, I just want to ask this, Chair John. If we were to provide you with the documentation that showed you the cumulative body of water, the cumulative rainfall in April surrounding the observation that Paul has documented, especially around the day that he said that the water level has surpassed 221.7 mark based on his measurement. If we were to provide you with documentation for this, would this be helpful? Would this help you reconsider your claim that this body of water is jurisdictional? Or are you enforcing your power, your unlimited power, to say whatever anywhere is jurisdictional?
So I think what we're going to do is we're going to have the wetland scientists work this out, because this is taking up too much time. And our bylaw basically says that if we see this once, it's jurisdictional, regardless of what the rain has been for the year. If last summer it happened not to reach that threshold, then you would be fully in favor of that because it was a dry year. But then if there's too much rain, you don't like that jurisdiction either. So no, we're going to let the wetland scientists review this. They're going to look in detail to what our definition is. We're not going to have hearsay or anything of that sort. They're going to communicate with each other and come up with something. Okay, so we're not going to go ahead and make this a personal thing or anything of that sort. We'll follow the data. What we've heard so far is it does appear to be, and that's it. I think our hearing for this evening is over. We're giving you a chance to have your wetlands expert rebut this, but based on what I've heard tonight from our agent as well as our consultant, this fulfilled our requirement based on our bylaw. We're going to give you a second chance at it. Go through it, but from what I'm understanding, the amount of rain that you had at any particular time may not play a part in this. We're going to get this clarified, wetland scientist to wetland scientist. And why don't we see you back here? Zoe, do you think that's something that you could address within the next week so that we could be ready for the following week? Or is this something you need a little extra time on?
I can try my best to get it done within the next week.
Okay, so we'll provisionally put you on the agenda for our next meeting. If you can just send a formal request into Lori to be placed on that, we can always continue that if you don't have that data. And so I'm looking for, take a look at the
This isn't
bylaws.
actually a hearing, John, so.
Yeah, and part of the enforcement part, but frankly, yeah, we've congratulations, you found a fish. We're willing to say it's not a vernal pool. At the same time, part of the reason the fish might like it was because it had enough water to be an ILSF. I don't know. We'll find out. But we have other people in beyond this. Let's get some experts to confer on this. Okay.
Yeah. One last comment I want to make, John, to Zoe is Vadrum wants to go and look at precipitation data and look at the runoff calculations. You need to, in so doing, you need to consider the antecedent ponding it from groundwater, which is really hard to do. But that needs to be considered.
Mm-hmm. So interesting enough, we had high groundwater in January and February, supremely high groundwater. But in March and April, not so much. It dropped surprisingly. Okay, thank you. And we will see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Okay, moving on. We have continued notice of intent, One Bridle Path Circle. Janet, can you fill us in?
Sure. So this was an NOI for some actually relatively minor work, a deck replacement, a number of amenities, a sauna, a footpath. It is in Riverfront, and we did not have an alternatives analysis. That was something DEP flagged as well. Since our last meeting, all required information has been submitted. I've reviewed it. I feel everything is in compliance with our regulatory requirements. So I am recommending approval of an order of conditions, and you will be needing to approve a waiver request. No, I'm sorry, let's see.
Waiver requests? Yeah, requests.
There are no waiver requests for this. It's in front. There's no BVW. So in my recommendation, that was not right.
Oh, okay. So we're just you're recommending we vote just on the notice of intent as submitted for the work proposed.
That's right. And then I have 12 recommended special conditions. They are very standard, signage, bounds, our erosion control, disturbed lawn areas that we established, monthly progress reports, stockpiling. So, yeah, very straightforward.
Okay. Great. Then I will entertain a motion to
excuse me.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Dave.
Hi, my name is Dave Marquardt from Judy Marquardt. I think we talked last time about not requiring the bounds. That was something that maybe the abutter had requested.
Oh, right. No, I'm glad you brought that up because we did discuss that. And is that part of the special conditions?
Yes, I think she just mentioned that. And I think we need to maybe step aside from that one.
Is that in there, Janet?
So what DLCT requested were bounds along their property line, and they do not directly abut. The bounds that are our standard requirements are along the limit of work line. The bounds are standard and the signage is standard.
Okay. So when I discussed at the previous meeting that given the limited nature of this project and the fact that the work was actually on the other side of the building predominantly, but I didn't see there was a need to have bounds there. That we discussed the signage as being typical, but that I didn't see the need for bounds. Do commissioners recall that conversation? No.
Yeah, I remember some of that, but I'm also thought there might have been like we were expecting something would indicate the bounds. But I'm not super clear on what we decided.
Well, yeah, they basically, it initially came to us as the LCT wanted bounds. And my feeling was that, isn't that lovely, but that's not what we do. That's and then Amy brought up that the land actually wasn't contiguous, so that was off the table. Then we looked at, remember, this is just adding a small porch. Let me just take a look here. They're taking down a deck, rebuilding it with some stairs, and it just was really pretty benign. And we talked about the fact, I don't know, maybe the best thing to do would be to share the plan. If we, can someone do that?
Excuse me, John, I think
Are you
I'm,
done?
I think I'm done. Am
Okay.
I to be released?
Thank you. You are released.
You're
Thanks,
released.
Paul, for your help.
Thank
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Paul.
Good night.
Night. Dave?
Yeah, how many bounds is the commission looking for? Just a few?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll volunteer the bounds.
Okay, fine.
Yep.
Then, given that, they're incorporated in the special conditions, then, I'll entertain a
Move
a
to
motion
close the hearing.
Second,
Thank you. All in favor? Anna?
Aye.
Sarah?
aye.
Amy?
Hi.
Tim?
Aye.
And myself? Aye.
Okay,
Continue.
move to issue a standard order of conditions approving the project with the special conditions outlined in the agent's report.
Second,
Thank you. All in favor? Amy? Anna?
Aye. Aye.
Sarah?
aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And myself as an aye. Okay, great. Thank you, Dave.
Great. Thank you very much. Have a good
Okay,
evening.
and be in touch with Janet relative to some of those special conditions deal with erosion control and her meeting on site. Okay,
Yep, understood. Thank you.
thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, 2 Dedham Street, DPW. Janet, why don't you fill us in?
I'm sure. So we had a presentation at the last meeting. This is a replacement of the salt shed with stormwater improvements on the site of the DPW at 2 Dedham Street. There was some additional information. All required information has been submitted. I've reviewed it. It is in full compliance with all of our regulatory requirements. I am recommending approval of an order of conditions. And there are 2 waiver requests, which is allowing work within the 50-foot no disturb and structures inside the 70-foot no structure. Because this is replacement of existing structures and disturbance within a previously disturbed area, this would come under our grandfather policy to approve those waivers. In addition, I have 11 special conditions, which are pretty standard. And I am recommending just one type of signage here, no bound. And the sign would just be towards the back of the property near the wetland. The sign would read protected wetland area, no dumping or activity.
Okay. Great. So on your notes, you mentioned 3 waiver requests, but it's actually 2.
Yes, 2.
Okay. Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Move to close the hearing.
Do I hear a second?
Second, sorry, I was on
All in
mute.
favor? All in favor? Amy?
Hi.
Anna?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well.
Okay, move to issue an order of conditions approving the project as presented with additional conditions and specified in the agent's report.
Second,
Thank you. All in favor? Amy?
Hi.
Tim?
Aye.
Sarah?
aye.
Anna?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Okay, great. Thank you. Moving on, we're looking at 62 Claybrook, a proposed single-family home from Glossa Engineering. Janet, why don't you give us an update here?
This NOI was presented at the House meeting. There was some additional information needed, including a waiver request. We have received all required information and site plan revisions. The waiver request is to allow the well within the 50-foot no disturb. There are no alternatives because of the neighboring properties' septic system setback.
Okay.
So I recommend approval of this. I did want to confirm that Lori has received the waiver request fee. On this, I did not see that as being submitted.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Hold on.
John Bossett, you can see me. I'm going to hold up the copy of the check. That
Okay, there we go. Thank you.
So I did drop the check off for $500 with Lori.
Okay. Well, Lori was
along with the other.
Lori was shaking her head yes. So
Okay.
we're doubly confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions on commissioners? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Move to close the hearing.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Amy?
Aye.
And Anna?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And myself. And
Oh, yes. Sorry. Move to issue a standard order of conditions approving the project with the, actually, you have to do a waiver thing. Move to grant the waiver under the bylaw.
okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of granting the waiver? Amy?
Aye.
Anna? Sarah?
Aye.
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
Okay, move to issue a standard order of conditions approving the project as presented with the additional conditions in the agent's report.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Amy?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay. Thanks for
Thank
your
you, Mr.
patience, John.
Chairman. Thank you,
for hanging-
Janet.
Okay.
Aye.
Let's see. Next up would be 22 Rule Drive. NOI under the bylaw only. Janet, why don't you fill us in?
Sure. So this NOI was presented at the last meeting. There are two fairly large wetlands on either side of the property. They're proposing just to do a second floor addition, but there is a new porch being proposed. I had requested some additional information. Some of that has been received, but not all of it. So if the consultant and our homeowner are here, I thought it would be worth just to restate what is required before we can close and issue the COC. I mean, the order of conditions.
So I'm sorry, you wanted them to present what was required, or I didn't.
So in my last regulatory review report 2 weeks ago, I outlined exactly the additional information we needed.
Right.
We've only received some of that. So the additional information we need is, let's see. I had asked for information on how the roof runoff would be infiltrated on site. In a narrative, the consultant indicated there'd be a Coltech system installed. We always get a specific detail on the site plan showing for the Coltech. And that has not been added to the site plan. Let's see. Also, our standard orange construction fencing in front of the compost sock, that needs to be added as a detail on the site plan. And I think that was it. And this is also a case, there are 2 waiver requests, and I just wanted to confirm that we've received the waiver fees for those.
Okay. Okay. So we'll go backwards. Lori, have you received those fees?
A $500 waiver fee was received.
Okay, thank you. And and who is representing the homeowner? Is that I can't tell from what the agenda
Russ
is.
Waldron is on at the meeting.
Oh, okay. So can you update us, Russ, relative to what Janet was looking for?
Let me look at the plan here. We.
Russ, I can share the plan too if you want for everybody to see.
Yeah, I can try that as well. I'll try and do that. I've been hitting glitches.
Lori and Jan, sorry, so this is part of the plan that was submitted and delivered to the town hall by my wife. It was dropped off, so it does delineate the orange fencing and I believe the infiltrator. I don't know if you have those documents with you, but we delivered 2 hard copies.
Yes, so we actually require, there's also a detail on your site plan showing the compost sock, but the detail does not show the orange construction fence. So there's
sorry, I believe that's the old one. The new one that we dropped off has and I can share that, has the orange fence.
Okay, so right now you're sharing your Zoom, is that right? I just
Trying.
wanted to make sure. I wanted to make sure whoever was recognized. I didn't know if, of all things, if we were taking over with this screen, it's not bad, given some other stories I've heard.
Oh, it says I am screen sharing.
Yeah, but it's what you're sharing. We're sharing the wrong thing.
Is that better?
No, what we need would be the PDF or something like that. If you were to pull up your PDF. If Aaron has it,
I have it on my screen. It's not, it says on
Yeah,
screen.
you have to click on that and then share that.
So does he need to unclick on what he's currently sharing?
Yeah, you have to stop sharing and go back, share again, and select the thing you want it from the little box with all the different little windows in it. Select the window you want to share and then say share.
Yeah. Okay, let's try this again. So that is highlighted. And then you say just click share.
Yep.
Good to go.
That's it.
There it is.
All right.
Okay.
Magic.
First time I've ever been successful at doing this.
Well, congrats. Good.
So I'm
is
looking.
this site plan.
Janet's right. The Cultec detail is not on the plan. The fencing is. So that got added. We're showing a proposed infiltrator here. It may or may not go there. The soil test will ultimately determine that, but it will go here or somewhere over in this corner inside the erosion control. So like mentioned, the project is a wraparound farmer style porch, going to be supported by sonotube style footings. And that's really it. It's not, it's pretty straightforward.
So Janet, does that, given the scope of this project, does that give you the information you're requiring?
Let's see. So
it's showing the erosion control, but the detail in the erosion control over to the right is not showing the orange fence, but the orange fence is shown on the plan view.
right, but in my experience, a contractor usually goes through they look at the detail. So we really need to have that orange construction fence.
We can add that and get the revised plan to you tomorrow. If that would work.
On the and probably on a separate sheet, the detail on the Cultec chamber with this.
Sure, not a problem.
And then my other concern is you are going to be stockpiling in the driveway, and that is within 50 feet of the wetland. And as I said in my note, in that I would like to see erosion control around that stockpile area.
Well, the stockpile is just going to be construction lumber, and it's not going to be any earthen material or anything like that. Anything that's, I mean, the only earth and material is gonna get generated is from digging the footings. And if there's enough left to haul off site, it'll get hauled off site. If there's not, you usually don't get too much when you dig a footing, especially if they run it down with a big auger. And it can just, get spread around underneath, where the porch is gonna be. But as far as the stockpiling in the driveway, that's just strictly for the construction of the porch, lumber, footing stuff, and, braces, nails, whatever, roofing. Nothing that's gonna be road or runoff.
Okay, so it would, be up to the commission, usually we do like to have a revised site plan in hand, just so it doesn't fall through the cracks before we issue the order of conditions. But it would be up to the commission to decide if they want to require a revised site plan before closing and issuing.
Well, I think that seems to be the easiest way to go. But no, so there's still a control in terms of meeting with you on site and reviewing everything. So I would recommend for commissioner, unless anyone has an objection, that given the small scale of this, that they submit that, but that we can approve it tonight, and it will be up to Janet to make sure she has it in hand before she approves any construction.
And then in addition, there are 2 waiver requests for 50 and the 70. And I think that would be appropriate to approve those under our grandfather policy, since it's a disturbed area. And then there are 8 additional special conditions.
Okay, so my question is this, can we embody the waiver approval in the in our approval for just to avoid multiple votes, to call that out in our approval of the order conditions itself?
I think procedurally it's better to take 2 votes.
I know that's the way you think. I'm just wondering, just for the sake of time, sometimes it we seem to vacillate on times. But in this case, I'm fine with entertain a motion to close the hearing.
You can stop sharing your screen, please.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Move to close the hearing.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Amy?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Myself? Aye.
Okay, move to issue a standard order of conditions approving the project. Oh, actually, you want to do the waiver first?
Yeah, or we can incorporate the waiver and make
Okay.
it and call out that it's that it's also relative to our grandfather policy.
Yes, okay. Move to issue a standard order of conditions with the special conditions outlined by our agent, and approving granting the waiver based on our grandfather clause.
The 2 waivers.
The 2 waivers, grandfather policy.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Amy?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. With the understanding here that this until those additional details are submitted to the office, Janet has the right to not permit construction. Okay.
Absolutely not a problem. I'll get the plan to her lickety split.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your patience for waiting.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Oh, let's see. Continuing notice of intent, certificate of compliance, 45 Yorkshire. Let's see, Janet, why don't you fill us in here?
So we actually should take up the certificate of compliance for this property first, so that the order reversed.
No, that's what I mentioned. I thought I said certificate of compliance. I'm sorry. Oh, no, maybe I didn't. So yeah, so the 144-732 is a request for certificate of compliance. And it's looking like you recommend the approval of that?
Yes, very straightforward. I've been out to the site. Everything was done in compliance. And there should be 4 permanent conditions added to the certificate of compliance as outlined in my notes.
Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion to grant that certificate of compliance.
Do we have to close the hearing?
Not for certificate of compliance, I don't think.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. So all in favor of granting the certificate of compliance for 144-732? Amy?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Okay, and then moving on, looking, want to bring us up for the notice of intent for 144-917.
So we are opening the hearing on this because of the certificate of compliance had not been approved for the previous project. This is very straightforward. This is a property adjacent to the Charles River. It's primarily a landscaping and native planting project. So this is going to have an overall beneficial impact to riverfront. There is reconstruction of an existing driveway in the footprint, as well as some hardscaping. So again, very straightforward. The applicant did submit an alternatives analysis. There are no alternative locations for the project components, and I'm recommending approval with the 8 special conditions listed in my notes.
Okay,
And-
any discussion? Okay.
You know,
I'll-
I'm
excuse
sorry. I know Rich Kirby from LEC is here. If you wanted to just briefly see the site plan on that. I don't know if the commission would like to see the details on that proposal.
Folks want to look at a driveway?
No.
Thank you.
Oh, no, okay, so, okay, thank you. So entertain a motion to close the
Move to
hearing.
close the hearing.
A second.
Thank you. All in favor, Amy,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Anna. And I'm an aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Well,
You're now-
you're not done yet.
We haven't, you're not out of the woods yet. We have to actually issue the order of conditions.
Fair enough.
Move,
Thanks.
move to issue a standard order of conditions, approving the project with the special conditions outlined in the agent's report.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. All in favor, Tim,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
Anna,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, good night, Rich.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
very much,
you.
everyone.
Okay.
You now
bye-bye.
have the distinction of this being the easiest public hearing I've ever had in Dover and one of the most difficult public hearings I've ever had in Dover for Dover Road. But anyway, have a good night. Thank you.
Go figure. Thanks. Okay. Now we also have we have a request a certificate of compliance for 1 Claybrook Road, hydro raking done a decade ago. Janet, why don't you fill us in on this?
So this is very straightforward. All the conditions were approved. There was no as-built plan to evaluate. Again, it was a hydro raking project in the Charles River. The ownership is transferring. So as you'll recall, for at least the last 10 years, we've required when there is a new owner that a deed covenant be recorded. And this is something we've required of all applicants and owners. So this was submitted. I reviewed it in detail with their attorney. So I'm recommending approval of the certificate of compliance with the 4 continuing permanent conditions added to the COC.
And were those conditions part of the original order of conditions?
Yes.
Okay. Great. I'll entertain a motion to grant the certificate of compliance.
Move to grant a certificate of compliance for, where are we?
1 Claybrook Road.
1 Claybrook Road.
Okay.
I will second it.
Thank you. All in favor? Amy?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next we have 42 Trout Brook. looking at a certificate of compliance under the bylaw for septic system replacement. Let's see, so fill me in here, Janet, please.
And so the issue here is that ownership was transferred, the original order of conditions. So I indicated to the new owner and their attorney that the deed covenant was required, as we always do. And there was some back and forth and concern from, there were multiple parties involved here, all questioning the commission's authority to require the deed covenant. So I recommended that this come before the commission so you can answer specific questions about this requirement.
Okay, so was this embodied, this is the one that, so in our orders to condition, it makes reference, I think it's what, number 17 or thereabouts, to a deed covenant. Is that correct?
Let's see if this was this. Yes, in this case, it was number 17 of the order of conditions.
And so basically it makes reference to a covenant, but it doesn't give all the wording of what that covenant is until people come to us for their certificate of completion or compliance. Is that correct?
Yes, so the special conditions outlines what's required, and it specifically states in such form satisfactory to the commission. So about 3 years ago, so before I became agent, this was not being enforced. About maybe 4 years ago or 3, I worked with town council on specific language to be used to fulfill this. And that did come before the commission, you approved it. And that's what we've been using for the last 3 or 4 years.
So this is the actual wording that we have been, it's consistent with everything we've used for, I thought it was a little bit longer than 3 or 4 years, for some reason. But this is not any different than what we require anyone who has an order of conditions when they look for, this is what is referred to in the order of conditions. Do current orders of conditions make reference to this particular deed language, or do they still just refer to the covenant as this one did?
We have not required it, but I'm thinking that we probably should. I would recommend that when Lori assembles the order of conditions, that we include this language so it's clear. Because what, the problem is closing attorneys are not even looking at our order of conditions. So they miss this requirement. Everyone is surprised. So I think if this language were to go into the order of conditions, that at least would help educate, hopefully, at least the attorneys, if not the new owners.
Okay, so and this makes it clear that the deed needs to be amended. So, and normally these COCs are done, actually, in this case, I think this, let's see, Christina, you're the owner?
Yeah, I'm the owner.
So this was, the septic system was actually put in, you purchased the property in this case, is that right?
Yeah, when I purchased the property, they said they were going to, this is a long story, but I'll be very brief. It was going to be put in June, but it didn't really got put until sort of late in the fall, in the summer. So there was a way for them to inspect last year. So that's why it's not coming up until now. I never saw that document. It was not part of the sort of, the title company never saw that. And the title was written to me without any of that on. So I was a bit surprised that now I'm asking to revise after the people already took my money and left. This is why to me is very disturbing, because it was never part of the discussion and was not something that the lawyers found or the title company found when we're closing on the property.
So just for commissioners to know, so you and I had a discussion and we discussed how it was referred to relative to the covenant, but the wording wasn't spelled out. And you had voiced concerns that whether it would affect the marketability and so forth. And then you you learned from a neighbor that they had the same deed restriction on their property, and I had assured you that there are probably hundreds of them out there. So at this point, is this a moot point? Is this something that you've, or is there still discussion on this?
My closing attorney wanted me to communicate with another attorney, which I'm not gonna talk with him until tomorrow. I don't know if I even have anything to say.
So currently, you have not, this has not been recorded at the registry of deeds. You know, so this is still outstanding.
Correct.
Okay, so I mean, well, prior to this, Janet, did you have a chance to review? Is all the work done?
All the work is done.
Okay.
They finished it last September, I want to say.
Okay. And in our discussion, I, referred to number 17, and it says that the obligations of the order conditions should be expressed as covenants, and we talked about why, because closing attorneys tend not to see these things. They tend not to look too far, even though in your particular case, this is very benign. It's a septic system, but it's a septic system that actually is very close to the wetland because it was a grandfathered lot and so forth. So Janet, as I'm saying, so basically your recommendation, Janet, is that until we get this proof of this being recorded, that you don't see our ability to grant the certificate of compliance? Oh, can you unmute, please?
Yes, which was the same conditions that applied for the COC we just approved at One Claybrook. We waited to have that recorded at the registry and then proof of recording of the new covenant.
Which we received for One Claybrook, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, so that's, Christina, that's what was referred to in this, the special condition. And that's, as you've seen from people before you, even in this hearing, that it's something that we require. It doesn't affect your marketability. It does bring to the attention of closing attorneys. And then they look and they see it was a septic system and that's it. But it also gives notice to anybody you sell to that they are next to a wetland, and so that they have to contact us if they want to do any additional work there. So do you have any questions about? So what we're looking at is we would continue this for our next meeting. We're basically ready to go. We just need the wording and proof of recording. Do you have any questions concerning that?
No.
Okay, okay, then we'll schedule you for the next meeting, and hopefully everything will be all wrapped up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Let's see, then we have continuing discussion regarding 15 Grand Hill, Fen Boyden. Do we have anybody here?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, sorry. Okay. Okay, so Janet, what has anything changed? Can you give us an update there, please?
So at the last meeting, we talked with the property owner, asked for any information she had about a site inspection back in 2020. I sent out my emails from 2020, confirming that the trees I observed on the site were outside the buffer, but indicated that any future trees in the wetland or buffer would need to have further review and approval. Since 1920, I have received no further communication. And as my site inspection showed, it appeared, well, we wanted more information from the owner a wetland delineation. I believe it appears some trees were cut down, perhaps in the wetland, definitely in the buffer, and then dumped in the back. And there is a road was created, an access path. So my recommendation would be an enforcement order requiring a delineation. Based on the delineation, then perhaps a restoration plan.
Okay. And have you communicated with Fen?
She got a copy of all my notes, yes.
Okay. Okay, so Fen, does it do you understand what we're looking for there?
No, not really.
Mhm.
So what do you want me to do for next?
So we have it looks like from the pictures and so forth, there's a at some point you had trees come down, and you had cut trees, and then had them moved further behind the house, and
Yes.
that appears to have put them closer to a wetland there. And so we will most likely need to have those either cut up, removed, or have, something done with them. Because it's one thing for one tree to fall in the woods and leave it there, but to actually create a pathway in the buffer zone and bring a bunch of logs into closer to the wetland is something that's not allowed. So we're asking you to, we're issuing an enforcement order because that shouldn't have been done without our permission. And what we're asking you to do is to hire a wetland scientist or a surveyor to go out and delineate, mark out where the wetlands actually are in the property back there and locate the logs so that we can see where things are relative to each other. And from there, we'll be able to ascertain whether they can stay there or whether they should be moved, or maybe some stay and some get moved, and whether you need to plant trees or bushes to mitigate the damage of putting the pathway in there and putting those logs there. And so, so at the time being, we need to just get an idea of what's on the ground. We need to know where your wetlands are. And Lori will have, if you give her a call or stop by the office, she'll have a list of wetland scientists who can do this. It's generally not that expensive. And then you'll be able to come back at our next meeting. Actually, I think, Janet, you're saying you want to have this done by
5 weeks.
June 19th?
Yeah.
What's that?
Can I ask some question?
Sure.
Yes. So for me, so if the easy, so can I hear somebody moving that remove all of them from the wood? It's okay. So I don't need to do some hear somebody.
The delineation.
Yeah.
I don't know, Janet. Did you go? Well, obviously you were there because you took pictures. Did you have an idea where the wetlands was? Could you see from where you were?
Yeah, I remove all of them from the wood.
No,
so
I understand that. I'm asking Janet whether or not if you would do that, would we still need a delineation?
I think, it would be best. No, it's possible that the trees aren't in a particularly wet area. Maybe they could be left there, or some of them, but I would be concerned about having the homeowner hire a contractor to go in with heavy machinery to now move the trees. That could do more harm than good. So I do think the first step, there is certainly skunk cabbage. I believe the area these were dumped is wetland. Yes.
Okay. So the issue we have, Fen, is that just on a visual basis, it looks like the logs are actually put into a wetland. So we have control over wetlands plus 100 feet away from wetlands. The closer you get to a wetland, the more chance there is to damaging the ground. And if these are actually in the wetland, getting a machine in there to move those logs may cause a lot of damage. So, which we don't want to have happen in the wetland. So we're looking to get the wetland delineated so we can tell what's there. The only other option, Janet, I don't know if she were to hire a crane to remove these, do you see that being of use, or do you think there's enough damage that may have been already sustained?
So that, well, first of all, that would be quite an expense. And I do think having a wetland scientist go out, assess the wetlands and assess if there is any impact here.
So I think, Fen, to move those logs without damaging anything would probably could cost you a minimum of $2,000, because you'd have to get a crane that would be out by the road or on your driveway. Getting a wetlands expert in there would cost you considerably less. And if they may be able to determine that you might be able to actually leave them there. We don't know until we actually get that delineated. So it seems like the best course at this point is to for us to issue the enforcement order. We'll work with you, give you a list of people that you can reach out to, and they can come out and take a look at that. And they delineate the wetlands, and they may also be able to give you some recommendations on how to handle the logs. And then if you have any other questions, we can, we'll certainly, try to help you out there. But right now we have a bunch of logs apparently sitting in a wetlands, and getting access to them may actually damage the wetlands. So we want to be very careful about that. Is that clear?
Yes, I understand what's your side, but okay, let's do the first. I will please give me this. I will try that. The only things I worry about, if they said I need to remove out that, but we still need to remove out damage something.
I'm sorry, if they review it and then they say you should remove those, is that what you're
Yes.
concerned with?
Yeah.
We're concerned as well. I mean, but frankly, they shouldn't have been put there in the first place. So we want to get an idea of how sensitive the ground is that they're on, and what could be done to in a cost-effective basis to remove them without any additional damage. So if you can contact Lori, she'll give you some names. And Lori,
Okay.
do you have Fen's email at this point?
Yes. Yes. So I have a question. Do you guys how much for that? So because my daughter, will go to the school, so I just worry about.
I'm sorry,
So
because I
yeah,
don't know the
so
schools.
yeah, my daughter want to go to school, so I worry about I'm not affordable for that. So how much you guess if I do the evaluation?
We don't know. That's up to the people. So you'll make some phone calls to the names that Lori will give you, and they'll give you an idea. Janet, do you have any idea of, could you tell, is this all across the back of the lot?
The wetland?
Yeah.
Yes,
Or
yes.
okay.
An extensive wetland in the back, yeah.
Yeah, so but they don't do the entire wetland. They just do the edge of it. And so if your lot is 200 feet wide, they'll do 200 feet worth or a little bit more. It shouldn't take them that long, but they'll give you an idea once. They'll be able to look up your lot line and everything, and give you an idea of. They'll give you a quote before they do anything. But we don't know how much that would be. That's up to you to find out.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, Lori, can you email Fen the list we have of wetland scientists?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, and then we'll issue an enforcement order that just will give them some guidance as well. And we're looking at to have something submitted. So Janet, you're saying June 19th. Is that because we have a meeting the week after?
That was just giving her enough time to contact someone and have them come out and then issue a report.
Okay. So so we'll have that as part of the enforcement order. That will be mailed to you and emailed as well. But the deadline would be June 19th. So you want to start contacting people as soon as possible so that you can get on their schedule, and they'll give you a price, and then they'll be, they'll be able to come out and take care of that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for your help.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okie doke.
So John, you will want it, the commission should vote to issue that enforcement order. And
Yep.
I had 7 specific actions that I recommend, which are part of our standard enforcement order.
Okay, and that's there on your regulatory report.
Yes.
I'll entertain a motion to issue an enforcement order.
Move to issue an enforcement order for, according to Trout Book. No.
15 Grand Hill Drive.
Yes, yes.
Isn't that your
second.
house?
I'm in the wrong spot.
See, I said second.
Okay, all in favor, Amy,
Aye.
Anna,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Okay. Okay, let's see. Now we're looking to oh, this is the easy stuff. Looking to recommend a 3-year reappointment of commission terms that are expiring this coming June. So Amy, I'd like to beg you to consider extending your term. Are you willing?
I suppose so.
Oh,
How much
thank
you
you.
gonna pay me?
Just, I will increase it. I will give you as much as the chair gets.
We're
You're
gonna double your
my
salary.
salary?
Double it, absolutely. I'm actually feeling pretty good tonight. We'll triple it.
Okay.
Okay, so do we should we vote on this? Yes, I guess we do. So all in favor of recommending Amy to the selectmen to for a 3-year appointment? Say aye.
So moved. I would say so moved.
Okay, thank you. Tim,
Aye.
Anna,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Amy, do you want to chime in or?
Uh,
I know. It's imagine that if I weren't here, if somebody wasn't here, we wouldn't have a quorum. Should we? Well, we can vote to recommend Jim with the, whether we don't know what his stance is on this. Would anybody like to
Great.
move?
It'll serve his right for not
For
showing
not
up
being
to the
here?
meeting.
Yeah. I think we should just add a 0 to the end of that and do a 30-year appointment. But so I'll entertain a motion to recommend that Jim be reappointed.
Sure, so moved.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Amy,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Anna,
Aye.
and Sarah,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Okay. So if anyone is in talking to any sort of person who might be so inclined, we're still short a person on the board. So we've had a couple of close calls regarding quorum. So feel free to invite people to sit in. And I keep thinking that the next meeting will be so much shorter. But let's we could use an extra person.
Do we do any advertisement? I can't remember. Like, do we do anything in the paper to say like come on board or no?
What did we do last time, Lori?
Previously, we've put it in the paper and we've hung up flyers. I do know that there's something on the website now that was put on. I don't know if it was by Assistant Town Administrator Chris or Mona, but somewhere on there's open positions in different boards and committees in town. And
Okay.
Okay.
And just to in terms of other things, Lori, I'm wondering if this is to have you do this, if I should do it, but to give Paul a call to ask him to no, I'll talk to him about 29 Saddle Ridge. I really want to get things in a row technically on that so that we don't experience what we experienced this evening. So I'll talk to him. Okay, land management work group update. Oh, and you sent a couple letters out, Anna, about what do we have for money and how can you spend it?
Yeah, basically. We have so I sent around a memo yesterday morning, I think. I can
2 days
share
ago.
my
2
screen.
days ago.
Oh, 2 days ago. I was ahead of myself.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah.
Kudos.
Oh, go ahead. Thanks. Janet reminded me, so I don't get too much credit. Yeah, so the idea is that since we're working on the RFP and improving that based on feedback last time, and the fiscal year ends at the end of next month, and we would really like to use that money before it gets turned back. Could we propose $10,000, half from trails, half from land management, to go towards survey and bounds of Valley Farm? If for some reason that comes in under budget, we have ideas for how to spend it, but no one really thinks it's going to. It'll come close.
Do we have bounds at Wildwoods? Does anybody know?
No, I don't think so.
No, there's no bounds. No.
I don't think we ever even got the bounds at the Dedham Street property. Remember, right? And I don't think they ever put any bounds in.
No, I don't. I agree with you, Amy, and I don't think that. I mean, when I've ridden out behind Wildwoods, there's never bounds.
Oh no, there's no bounds in Wildwoods. I'm talking about the Dedham Street property that we actually had surveyed when the Loblentzes sold, and I don't think we ever
put the bounds in.
I know it was under George, so who knows?
So the question, when we put in bounds for that sort of thing, they're not bounds they're property bounds as opposed to our distinguishing bounds for edge of work and so forth. So they would go lower to the ground. Is that correct? I just want to. I don't want somebody running into them.
No, I would think there would be like
flush
6 inches or whatever. Like, I mean, they're not. Yeah.
Yeah, and
they need in a field. They got to be high enough so that they don't try and mow over them. That's the only thing.
Well, no, I understand. My question is, well, I'm thinking actually of horses, although most of these bounds would not be in the middle of a trail, but we would make sure they're not put there.
Well, you want to have them high enough so that people don't either run their tractor or run their horse over.
Yeah, no, okay, I think that's a good point. And Frank, they can be, because when we did the bounds for 46 Springdale, they're up higher. So they can see them.
Well, that's because somebody had a bunch of granite posts.
Yeah,
happy to give us.
Well, that's true. Good point. So what was Lori? What do we have remaining unencumbered in our budget?
Oh, go ahead, Laura. Did you want to speak or?
Go ahead, Annie. You probably have it right in front of you. I have to dig it out.
Yeah. It was 5,000 for land management. We haven't spent any, and 6,280 for
265. I have. Yeah.
Okay. So we can encumber that, and then if we don't use it, it goes back into the general fund. Is that the deal, or does it if we encumber it, we get
you can only
keep it?
You can only encumber it if you have it already allocated to spend on something, and if the work is going to be done in this year.
Okay.
So and the other thing is, if something's going to be over $10,000, I don't know if you need to get bids for that.
Okay, so maybe the thing is we break it up across different properties. So,
John?
Janet read into this.
Right, so I've dealt with the bidding process a lot. So if it's under 10 or under, you have to get 3 verbal quotes. And I've already reached out to a couple surveyors that Kevin McCabe has used. So, we're going to need to move pretty quickly on this. But again, it's just 3 verbal quotes under 10,000.
Okay, under 10. Over 10, we need what, written quotes or?
10 and under.
A whole bidding process.
Yeah. So, well, no, I was just curious. Yeah. So, okay. So we'll look at, so that hence your numbers for 5 and 5. Is that right? Okay. So then the question I have is on a cost per bound. Does anybody have an idea?
Yes, so I've talked to quite a few surveyors. As soon as we get the go-ahead, I'll send them out the parcel. So the expense isn't just the bounds, this is also surveying. So they'll come in, they'll look at the file. If Lori can set out the files for both Dedham and Valley Farm. I believe Valley Farm may have some corner bounds. So anyways, the surveyor will look at the file. It could be we have it, maybe the land has already been surveyed. And that will cost quite a bit of money, so.
I think I might be wrong, but my gut is that Valley Farm has already been surveyed. Like
Well, I know there are bounds by the Normandy style house there.
Yep.
And although is that Valley Farm, or is Valley Farm the one that's the next one down?
Who knows? Like
They're both Valley Farm.
Right,
Are
they're
they
both
really?
Valley Farm. Like
So, and where we look at these bounds, are we looking at bounds basically just where they adjoin private property? So there's no need to bound over by the stream or anything like that. We would just bounding on either edge of where the houses
Yeah.
are.
That's what I'm thinking. Bound the perimeter, not the parcels where they across the street.
Right. So, and I think, I remember on Dedham, we can look up who the engineer was on that, who did the survey, because and pull them in to see if they want to be one of the bidders, because they would have the information already at hand. Lori, would we have a plan from that survey somewhere for Dedham Street?
Dedham Street? We had a survey done on.
Yeah, I seem to recall
Dedham
that
Street?
there were stakes done, put in, and I just don't know if there were any iron rods or anything like that. So we had that surveyed at one point. I think as Amy had mentioned.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't think
I'll have to look in the file and see if there's anything in there.
Okay, so why don't we, entertain a motion to use up to $10,000 to survey and bound Dedham Street and Valley Farm.
So moved.
Okay.
Sorry, Tim.
No,
Go
that's
ahead.
that fine. That was
I
efficient.
second.
No, you were right on. That was very efficient. So, great. All in favor? Sarah?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Okay, let's
Two other
see.
things, two
Oh,
super
okay,
short
got it.
things.
Yep.
The other thing is, we wanted to spend $1,000 on trail supplies, stuff that we could put up by the end of the summer, ideally, like reflective signs to point the trails. Do we want to do that as well, or like?
Yeah, if we have an
is that-
extra $1,000 there, it sounds like. So I think we do that and then make sure we buy that before the end of the fiscal year. Do you have a supplier in mind, or?
Greg's looked at some. It seems all pretty commodity, so we just wanted to, get started on tapping signs into trees.
Yep. No, and I saw I've saved a few things on Amazon that have like hikers walking left, hikers walking right with little arrows and things of that sort. So sometimes we don't need the little subtle medallions depending on the intersection.
And
So
don't forget to check with Mike Francis at the trustees and see if they have any that they're decommissioning that we can reuse.
Good
Oh,
idea.
that's great. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, because
we used last time Jerry just cut off the trustees logo and used some of their boundary signs.
Wait. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to do that.
So moved.
Second.
Well, let's have a little bit more. So,
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
To purchase.
Move on.
So,
This is-
to purchase trail
Yes.
supplies before the end of the fiscal year.
Yes, move to purchase supplies for trail supplies before the end of the year, fiscal year.
Second.
Thank you. In favor, Amy,
Aye.
Anna,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Okay, and next, Anna?
If anyone wants, I've got photos of the bog bridge from the last build weekend.
And
How'd
so
that
is it
go?
completed? Is it completed or
It's
is it-
happening.
Uh-huh.
We've got a full section done. Let me put this up. Rick and Greg were out. You can see Greg.
Oh my God,
cutting
that's
it.
great. Oh my God, Anna, that's awesome.
So
We're
how'd you
super
move that?
excited.
Yeah, I was thinking,
That's gonna be the hard part. Okay, that's gonna be
need a lot of
Jerry
people.
Arnold's tractor and a lot of pushing.
Is that
And then
two
you can see that.
sections or one section?
This is one. We're gonna do. I think there's three that come together, but
So
Is
how
that,
about-
so
That's
I know
very
exactly where
long.
that is. Is that, I know exactly where that is. Like, okay.
Mhm.
I might be wrong. This might be two together.
And is that rough sawn lumber or what's?
Yes, that was
Mhm.
our fancy oak that we got at an incredibly good deal.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's white oak?
Yeah.
Good, because red oak
Mhm.
rots.
Oh my God, that's awesome, Anna. That's awesome. I know, well, I don't know exactly where you're, but I have a feeling I know where you're gonna put it.
So are you just gonna,
It's-
put a bunch of rollers down and roll it all in, moving the rollers into the front of it and,
That's kind of the plan. We're thinking between like some sort I think this is one, by the way, between rollers and the tractor and pushing and maybe dragging. We're gonna hopefully put our heads together and sort it out. But
I think if you
we're
get
we're
five
leaning
people,
toward rolling something.
I think if you get five
Yeah.
people on either side. you
yeah,
can
that's what I'm
walk it.
thinking. A couple,
Yeah.
some, some nylon
Have a
straps. and
party,
just,
yeah.
Yep.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. And then what's it going on? Is it, I know we had done like half pipes before, using, what's it gonna rest on?
Let's see.
Stone or?
The PVC.
At this point, the PVC, we've talked a little bit about doing gravel at the beginning and end, but at this point, it's just,
Yep.
the PVC.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so is that the end of your update?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
sorting out the mosquito postcards with Chris Costello, but I have no real updates there. It's just everyone's emailing each other trying to figure it out.
Okay, Lori?
Just one thing for Anna. We still have, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 wooden posts at the townhouse that we originally bought to put up signage. And I didn't know, just so you know, it's there if
Are they
you
the
want to do something
are
with
they
it.
the
It's heavy wooden posts.
Are they the fluted ones, Lori? They have like little
The
grooves.
same ones you had in your barn.
Yeah, I still have them there. I saw them the other-
Oh, okay. Well, there's a few more still at the town.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're 4 by 4. I think they're cedar. They're 8 or 10 feet high.
Yeah,
nice.
So
Yeah.
just to let you know, we have stuff like that.
Well, Carl reminded me I had them there in some of his storage area, so.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, so last week, brought up, did anyone have a chance to take a look at Janet's invoice that she sent out a few weeks ago? She's been extremely busy.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I don't have that in front of me. Do you have, I don't, Janet, what was the amount? Was it 11,000 and change or?
10,943 and 75 cents.
Okey doke. So we're, and Lori, is this, so 6,000 of this we have and the balance is going to be come from, we're looking at a special transfer like we did last year. Is that what's going to happen?
Let's see. I have 10,986.25. Am I looking at the wrong thing?
Sounds about right.
Okay.
Isn't that what Janet just said?
She sounds like she said.
Did she say that? Okay, I
Yeah,
thought she said something different. So 6224 out of the Wetlands Protection Act account.
Okay.
And 4762 out of,
That's where we're gonna have to talk to the town administrator and have you submitted, did you submit, I know we talked about this a few months ago. Did you submit the we thought it was gonna be around $25,000 that we were
No,
gonna-
because there's a form that has to be filled out and signed, and
Okay.
I couldn't do it
So-
until you all voted it.
Okay, so, okay, then why don't we vote on this? I'll obtain a motion to approve the invoice.
I'll move to approve the invoice.
I will second it.
Thank you. All in favor, Amy?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Janet? Just checking. No, thank you. Okay, let's see. Oh, so there's the discussion approval vote to reserve the reserve transfer. So so for that on the agenda there, Lori, is that's in essence the ballpark $25,000? Is that where is that what you're? Okay.
Correct.
And then if we approve that, not that we have that much control, we're basically approving the request to go to the town and say, we've exceeded our budget. And yet we've had this, unrelenting workload that has required, it requires more money. Is there any discussion regarding that?
The only discussion I would say is that why do we go through this every year? Why don't we bump up our budget to,
Well, so we actually, I think at the town meeting that was included in the vote they had. So we have increased the budget for next year.
right? Right?
Still won't get us to $100,000, but I think it was 85,000. And in each year we keep thinking that it will cost less because we'll have fewer things. But I think this year's enforcement orders have taken up an awful lot of time, effort, and money, which was unanticipated.
This is
So we'll,
fine. I mean, but again, as we all are on the same page of like, okay, this is really how much it's going to cost us.
Well, I think so, and that's what, so we went through this, a number of months ago, and that's a hopeful budget. The issue that we have, and the town is supposed to be looking at this, but is that the potential, once you get to 100, then the way they've been managing the town, they want to look at whether or not we get a full-time agent or not. And we keep thinking that we'll come in under that, so right at the moment, we voted to bump it to 85. And so that we'll, if we do have to ask next year, we'll hopefully be asking for less. And it gives us a little bit of breathing space so that we can review what our goals are for the next few years. I think this year we've been doing a better job of utilizing the money that the budget, our $30,000 budget, to actually put into the ground and do things with.
Right.
Previous years, we had been applying it to Janet's bills, which then we were told was not appropriate and that we should be asking for a special transfer. So that's great. That directed us to actually make sure we spent it. And Anna and Amy have been super for making sure that we had projects to spend it on. And so that's very much appreciated. And we just keep that going forward. And so we did get approved for the extra money. And but what we don't have is we had $72,000 at one point in the WPA fund because we didn't realize that we had that WPA fund all those years. That is now zeroed out. We put in maybe a little over $2,000 a year based on filings. So so next year we may have to address this more formally with town management. Keep in mind we didn't have a town manager for a little bit, so we things that put on hold there. So okay. Let's see. Next is excuse me. Yeah.
Shouldn't you vote on that request?
I was just going to do that.
Okay.
Actually, yeah. So given that, I would
sorry, I didn't mean to delay the vote.
entertain a motion to request $25,000 for the balance of April, May, and June from town administration.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
To cover our consulting agent proposed fees. Okay, thank
Say
you.
second.
All in favor? Tim?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Amy?
Hi.
And I'm an aye as well. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Updates. Before I forget, I just want to jump in. Talking because Janet has been extremely busy. So I, based on questions we had the last meeting regarding the clear cutting that was on Dedham Street, I went in and took a look. Unfortunately, it was really muddy, which is also the reason that we are concerned about things like that. This is the Adams Estate on either side of the Adams Estate. And so I spoke to the tree cutter. Thought I was being helpful, telling him that he should check whether he's within the buffer. And he took umbrage, but then once I explained to him that sometimes builders throw their tree cutters under the bus, he was more willing to listen. There was extensive erosion control barriers put in place, which was nice to see at the very least. I didn't go all the way to the end of most of the lots. The two lots on the left did not seem to be at issue. On the right, where Noanna Brook comes through, looking at GIS and so forth, there could be an issue. I spoke to Walter, and as I thought, the owner didn't submit anything to Walter because they haven't pulled a building permit. They just went in to clear the land, and you don't need to actually pull a permit on that.
Don't you have to do that now that we have the that we have the new stormwater?
That doesn't kick in
bylaw?
until the AG approves the bylaw.
Oh.
So yeah. So interestingly enough, two guesses as to who the builder might be.
It's David Parrish.
Mm-hmm. So the
Really?
yeah. So I left a
Really?
message for David. Yeah, I left a message for David just to clarify because we get we get phone calls for this sort of stuff. However, I also looked up on the registry of deeds and was able to pull up the A&R plan that they had done on the property, which was just December. So
Yeah.
it's it's fresh, and
I
it was
have
done
it if anybody wants it.
Yeah, it was done by GLM, and they showed the setbacks, the riparian. There's a ILSF on the far right lot, and that's outside of the 200-foot square that they have for 2-acre zoning there. So it appears, but I do want to get clarification because this is showing riparian, not necessarily wetland, but it appears that the tree clearing was done outside of any jurisdiction that we may have. But I have a call in to David just to get a clarification on that.
So they were planning on clearing the back half of the back half of Miller Hill.
No, this is Dedham Street. This is the
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm still thinking of
it's Dedham Street. It's the old it's Charles Adams.
Mm-hmm.
The one I was most worried about actually was the one you can't see from the road, which was the big driveway that went in at what is designated 199. Well, it has 22 acres of backlands, and some of those are under.
Well, there's 2 lots being built up, or 3 lots being built up off of Dedham Street right now.
Well, there's plus as Amy said,
total.
Yeah,
is it 5 lots?
They put the State House back on the market for $5 million.
Yeah,
and then they cut off these lots. But
So
so
no,
Amy,
they sold these. So they cut it. They took a little bit off of 201 so that they had the frontage on 195 to make 5 lots out of it.
Yep.
They sold the mansion at 195 plus 1 plus lot 2. think it is.
Lot 2 is the mansion, yeah.
The mansion is lot 2 and 3 were sold together, and they may be back on the market under Sotheby's now. I
Mhm.
just noticed I was just at Sage today and I noticed the sign up, and I haven't gone and looked. But the mansion may be back on the market because the woman who bought it may be so disgruntled by all the tree cutting. But
Oh, interesting, yeah.
because they took the little bit off of 201, 201 used to have all the backland, about 20
Yeah.
acres of backland. 201 is now just a 3-acre lot because it no longer is contiguous to its backlands. But in the subdivision, lot 1, which is now 195, has all the backlands, and that backlands has a Mass Department of Resources, a really old wetlands easement on it. It has wetlands in the back there. So it's not I was a little concerned about the 2 right-hand lots as they get close to Noannet, but I'm also worried about the 199 where you can't see, but I saw a lot of big trucks going in. And
Yeah, so it's an interesting because there's a driveway going up there, but then there's the brook as you get to the end of the long skinny portions of those lots. And
yes,
they then come up to the brook. They'd have to build a bridge. So they're unless somebody wants to
oh
go
no,
in
the
there.
brook doesn't cross much of
As far as I can see on
199.
the Form A plans where they showed the 200 squares across the front, the 2 narrow sections that go to the back land,
Yes.
they go right to Noannet Brook. You would have to
No,
to get to
you're
that.
right. You're right about that. What I'm thinking of is the 199, which is the new
Oh my God, this is so sad.
highway
So,
driveway.
so whatever that property was, that was 200 acres and they're now subdividing it.
No, 20 it
Nope.
was 40 acres and now it's being subdivided into 4 or 5
That's
lots, and one lot that has 20 acres of backland.
Okay.
So anyway, I'll continue to look into that, and I'll take a walk out on the property. The last time I was out there, it was pouring out, so it was a little mushy. But I'll take a walk down the driveway to see. But
the driveway I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, that's been cut in. Yeah, and at least historically, David cuts the lots down, but
I'm not sure he's doing.
No,
He's doing
yeah. Anyway,
he's doing the 2 smaller lots that are towards the center of town.
Yeah,
for sure. He owns those.
Yep.
The
So-
199, I don't know. It's an LLC that I don't know who that is. It may be David because the real estate lawyer that's the trustee for that comes from Sherburne.
Yep.
Don't ask me how I figured that out, but somehow I don't know.
Yep. So I just wanted to give an update based on, at least for the surface appearances, things had been delineated. They seem to be outside of that. They put up erosion control. There was no reason for Walter's involvement at that point because they don't have house designs. They haven't submitted anything for that. So we'll just keep our eyes on that. And I believe that lot over onto the far right, closest to town, probably will need a scenic route hearing to get a driveway opening there. So,
Interesting.
anyway,
I don't think it already had. I think they already.
they accessed it. Oh, from planning board? You think they already went through that process?
No, but I think they have a.
And all I saw was
I think they just drove in and cleared stuff.
Yeah, but they drove in via the lot next door and went over it. They didn't come. There's no driveway going to the street currently.
Oh, okay.
So it's, okay, Janet, can you give us an update?
Sure, just a couple things. The first is 15 Hamlin's Crossing. Going back to February, Lori had received an abutter's concerned about trees coming down. There's a pond, there's a lot of wetlands. This is quite a large estate. I did a site inspection. One tree came down in the buffer. I discussed it with the commission, and the commission approved a letter just reminding the owners that any work within a buffer zone required permission, or review and permission. And apparently that letter didn't go out. Since then, apparently they're doing more work, although I haven't received anything. But I think it would be good for that letter to go out just to put them on notice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just looking to reaffirm
Okay,
that the
Lori?
Sorry, Janet, were you done?
Yep.
Okay.
So I got a call from someone regarding 15 Hamlin's Crossing. And that's what sparked Janet asking me about the letter. I don't know, I think it was maybe when I went on vacation right after that or something. But 2 trees were originally removed, and so someone named Troy Sober, Lombardi Design, had called the office and he wanted to speak with Janet. So I called him back, and there's an existing pool house. They're considering renovating it, rebuilding a new pool house. They're within the 25-foot. There's an intermittent stream. And so they're planning to file something. That was what the call was about. So do you want the same kind of letter to go out, or do you know, just because they're planning to file it?
So is this the old estate house? You know, they're within 25 feet of a wetland?
That's what they said. Troy Sober from Lombardi Design and Brian at Metro West Engineering suggested that he contact conservation, because they're talking about, you know, doing some work there. So I just don't know if you want that letter saying, reminding them they have wetlands in their yard when they're planning to file, because they gave me all this information. I don't know if you just want me to follow up with Troy and see what's happening, you know, if they're going to be submitting
I think
something. Or...
probably a letter both to a copy to Troy as well as the homeowner of record.
Just saying originally, reminder you have wetlands on your property.
Yeah, and that no work is to be done until they within 100 feet, you know, without
Okay, because they're planning to file with us, so.
Yeah, which is, I think it covers that. So, but I see it looks like it's the old estate, and there are several houses that are right alongside a stream. You know, literally like 10 feet from the stream. So, they'll have to file.
Okay. Just checking with the new information if you still wanted the same.
Yeah, well, I see. So you're saying basically they've made it clear that they intend to file. So you're wondering whether or not there's a need to send a letter out, since they seem to be aware of.
Didn't know if it was proper to send out a letter that said, you know, reminding them about wetlands on their property when they searched conservation out to ask about filing. So you know, whatever you want me to do.
So Janet, given that they've actually responded to us before we had a chance to send the letter out, it seems things are in play. I still think it's formal. It just lets them know that we're familiar, we're aware of this. I think why don't we still get the letters out? Okay. Next, Janet.
The next is, we had recently received a letter of concern from an abutter along Claybrook Road, bank stabilization letter. So I did send that out to everyone. I think she had some valid concerns. DPW's wetland scientist who is from Ecotech responded just today. I have not had a chance to look at his response, but they are doing the restoration work along the bank. That is a very fragile area. So I think it's worth a closer look here. And so I'll just add that to my agent's report for the next meeting. I hope to get it, and then we'll follow up.
So I think the person who wrote in here, did anyone else see that letter? It's the Romans who live across the street there.
Yes.
Her concern was that
I
they
know the
put in some soil out on the riverside of the retaining wall. But due to the flow of the river, they're afraid that some of that soil has been eroded away. And so they're just questioning, wildlife corridor and things of that sort. So we'll just see what Ecotech and the town has to say in response. Okay, Janet?
The next item was your review and approval of a letters of support for our continued involvement with the Charles River Climate Compact. They received an additional Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program grant, and they're just looking for all of the watershed towns to support that. Again, my effort on this is pro bono. And they just asked for a commitment of $250 worth of my time, which is pretty minimal. But again, that's pro bono. So I sent that letter out on May 4th, and I'm just looking for your vote to support that.
So entertain a motion for support. So it does not cost us currently anything. Is that
That's
right?
right. That's
Okay.
right.
Yeah, move to voice the commission's support of the project.
Second.
Thank you.
Whatever it is.
All in favor, Anna?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay.
Great.
Then go ahead.
So our comprehensive land management plan, our land group is working on revising that. I also will be sending out some samples, but that's going to be deferred now to the next fiscal year. So we'll come back with more information on that. And then the last thing is I've been trying to get at least some kind of environmental protection article into the digital newsletter. The one I sent out is for eco-friendly pest control, which I thought was timely. And it reinforces our concerns about using herbicides. So that deadline, if people could take a look at that, and by 12 tomorrow, if you have any comments. Also, if you have any ideas, please let me know. I'm happy to write a quick article, or if someone else would like to write an article, just let me know.
Okay, thanks. No, I saw that, and knowing what your schedule has been like, and it just seems like that newsletter comes up quicker and quicker each month. And I didn't know if you were going to run out of ideas at some point. So I have one last question. So 29 Saddle Ridge, I'm open to. I was a little perturbed at the way it went, and partly my fault for giving some latitude there. I'm open to feedback on how to handle that sort of issue, if anyone has anything.
I think you can I think you really have to crack down and say you're out of order.
Yeah.
I did mute him.
Yeah. The other thing is, you also got to tell him he can't make up his own rules.
Right.
I mean, that's what he's
Also,
doing.
it's enforcement. He doesn't even get a say.
Well,
no, I understand, but he thinks he can make up his own rules.
My only concern there was, and he came in at the tail end and then extended that end, was that there was a question as to, I was surprised. I thought those stakes, which I'd been out there on numerous occasions, were supposed to be the edge of what would, determine the ILSF. And then I was hearing contrary information. So what I tried to recover was put it back to the wetland scientists to figure that all out. But I think Paul's, was that But no, I will, in the future, I did, and it's rare, I can't recall the last time I actually muted somebody. But I muted him on several occasions there, but I think you're right, just, making it very clear that he's out of order, would be the, other appropriate way to
Or
do
you
that.
just say you are not recognized, please stop talking.
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah, and I should, before I mute somebody, I should probably say that, no. So, okay, thanks,
Yeah.
yeah, because I don't want that to happen again, and,
I had another just little point.
mhm.
In most, in my experience, and I think I did this when I was chair, chair only votes to break ties.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know
Interesting
if
point.
there's a rule about that, but it just occurred to me today. I don't know why you've been doing it for all this time, but you know.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously the chairs prior to me that I'd seen, they had voted, but I guess, or the other thing is vote to, if that's the, only, if that's a necessary vote for a quorum.
I don't think it matters.
Okay.
I think if there's a majority,
well, do you still need a quorum? Say we only had 4 people on, if I didn't vote.
well, but yeah, I'm not sure. As I said, I'm not sure what the
No, it's an
rules
interesting,
are.
yeah.
I just
Well,
thought
I'd
it
be
was
more happy to not
interesting.
vote, but, and so,
And
interesting.
I don't think I did when I was chair. I think I was like, oh yeah, chair doesn't vote unless there's a tie.
Okay. No, that's an interesting point. And we rarely, we
Yeah,
we're pretty unanimous historically, yeah. So, no, and I'll look into that.
Well, the problem is though, I will say is that we only have a quorum.
But it doesn't really have to do with a quorum. You know,
I mean, we're dealing with people that are, I mean, I don't mean to, we have of the people that are the commissioners, we only have the 4 people. There's only so many of us that are coming every other week.
Right.
So
no, I think it's an interesting point. I think so. If like tonight, if I didn't vote, we'd be fine.
Right.
If what we had was 4,
oh, okay, I see. Yeah,
including me, I think in terms of relative to any potential litigation or whatnot, I probably would need to vote because they may be looking for a quorum vote, at least a majority of the of what's available, as opposed to saying we had a quorum.
But if the vote already, if it gets to you and 3 of the 4 people there have voted in favor of it, you don't have to vote.
Right. But if there's only 4 and we have 3 votes, I don't know if that's
well. Just unless your vote is going to change the outcome.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
but I guess what I'm saying, Tim, is we have so few commissioners right now that are present.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with that.
No, I see the
Well,
point.
I say I do because we have so few commissioners who are like, I mean, I've said to Lori a couple weeks ago, I said, I think I might have a problem. I can't make the meeting. And she said, if you don't make the meeting, we're not gonna have a quorum. I said, then I will make the meeting.
Yeah.
So
no, that's a concern. And
yeah, no, this is independent of the quorum.
Yeah, but it's an.
Okay, so I guess we're talking 2 different. I guess we're talking.
Yeah, absolutely, 2 different things.
This is just a point of.
Yeah, it's just kind of a tradition.
Yeah, and I'll actually.
Okay.
And the only part that I agree with that. The only thing I'm concerned about is the legal ramification of our 3 votes.
No, I understand that.
And I'll run that by town council.
Just a curiosity.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting.
You guys are talking about. I'm talking about the actual quorum.
Right. No. What I'm talking about is typically the chair of a committee or a board does not vote unless there's a tie.
Right. So you guys are talking about apples and I'm talking about oranges.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
And I'm also talking about a quorum versus a city
yes,
quorum.
This is independent of whether there's a quorum.
Yeah, no, it was just an interesting point of information.
Yeah, just
And although it's interesting, in other towns where I've been in front of Concoms, the chair, in any of the ones I've been the chair has always voted.
Oh,
but
yeah?
it just- yeah.
So they
yeah.
have, so they have.
But I'll try, it's an interesting
Yeah,
point.
they probably
Like
also think that you have to vote on, you have to second a motion to adjourn.
Well, that I learned
Wait,
from
wait.
you.
We didn't even
So-
actually motion to adjourn tonight.
So, well, I was just gonna
No,
say,
no,
so, no,
the-
basically what Tim taught me was that hearing no objection.
Yeah,
Okay.
Robert's rules says that the only motion that does not require a second is a motion to adjourn.
Then just adjourn. And just
Yeah, and
adjourn.
Well,
I
no,
actually have an
you can have a
objection.
motion and a vote, but there's no second.
But you don't have to second it.
Right.
So based on your guidance, I've just been saying hearing no objection.
Yes, well, that's
right.
what
Hearing
they
no
do
objection.
in Congress.
Mm-hmm.
If you listen to those kinds of hearings,
Mm-hmm.
the chair will say, hearing no objection, the meeting is adjourned.
Okay. And people can
So-
always jump in if they have an objection. So
That's right.
Yeah. So hearing no objection.
I do.
Oh, you have an objection?
Anna does. Anna does.
Anna has an
First time
objection.
ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I actually just remembered. It's the end of the fiscal year for the mosquito flyers too. Do we want to do them on this year? I have a very back of the napkin math we could authorize or not.
And what's your back of the napkin amount? 500?
Little more than that. It's $220 for 1,000 postcards. We need 2 of those, so that's $440. And then I think it's 17 cents for a government rate for the bulk mailing rate, so that's $350. So that comes to $440 plus $350 is $790. So
we have the money.
I was thinking between education and supplies, we could vote for under 1,000, and if I can't figure it out in a week, it's
So
fund.
didn't we? Well, we just voted for the supplies, right?
Those were trail supplies off a different budget.
Was it?
Do you want to do that? Oh, go ahead.
Lori. Lori.
We don't have that much in.
Okay.
Where's it coming from? What line item is it coming from?
I was going to suggest the actual postcards would come from the education fund, which I don't think anyone has used. Maybe me.
The education fund is supposed to be for tuition, but for like commissioners but I can ask the accountant. And then the supplies budget is more like for office supplies, like.
Not postage?
I don't, not $790?
$350 for postage, $790 total.
Yeah, there's not that budget isn't even that big to start.
Mm-hmm.
The
So
supply
basically,
budget.
we had 11,000 as a balance currently, and we put 1,000 for trail supplies and 10,000 for bounds.
Well, the 11,000. Oh, she's talking about. No, that's trail maintenance. I think she's talking about other line items.
No,
Yeah,
I know. Looking at seeing where we can get other money, but we don't have it there. Based on what we encumbered
Okay.
this evening, we're looking at a different line item, and Lori's telling us that line item.
I think off the top of my head, I think tuition is 800 in total. We did have some from this year.
Mhm.
And
Well, so that's
supply
it.
budget is really small.
So that kind of answers our question as to next fiscal year. And so
I just don't know where it would come from. I thought you were talking about trail maintenance at first, but
Yeah.
Oh
No,
yeah, I was thinking the other line items.
I mean,
Yeah.
if we had a bigger, but we have a $50 book and periodical, budget. The numbers are really small. So.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds like I've got extra
Oh,
work
and-
to
Sorry, I have a
I would like
mosquito.
everybody to watch Amy to figure out why we need to send this mailer out, because she's trying to catch a mosquito. And so, okay, I'm gonna give this another try then. Hearing no objection. Tonight's meeting is adjourned.
Good
Thanks
night.
thank you
night.
everyone. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.